Be the right club today.
Johnny, that's better than most.
How about in?
That is better than most. Better than most.
Expect anything different?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the No Laying Up podcast / the No Laying Up live show. Arnold Palmer Invitational. I think it was MasterCard that it was presented by. I will have our producer Cody look that up. Just double check that one for me. TC is here. Welcome, TC. How are you?
I'm great, except for you. It's the Mr. Palmer Invitational, not the Arnold Palmer Invitational. Have some respect.
I knew I was going to slip up on that one. Kevin Van Valkenburg, new hire to No Laying Up, is with us as well. Hello, KVV. How are you?
So out of respect for Mr. Palmer, I will be taking many commercial breaks.
Speaking of commercial breaks, I should also mention the No Laying Up live shows, of course, brought to you by our friends at High Noon. Guys, I don't think people have fully realized this yet, but the new High Noon tequila seltzer made with real Blanco tequila and real juice, it is here. I have not gotten my hands on it yet, but I have to say I think tequila is my favorite thing to drink, like the natural thing to sip. I don't sip vodka. I love the vodka seltzers, but I like to sip tequila. And man, am I excited for the tequila High Noons. The High Noons, I said this last year. Look, we drank these things for free last year on the show. We love them so much. So I can only imagine how much we're going to love the tequila. It's again, my favorite seltzer, and now has a great option for all you tequila lovers out there. It's going to have 4 bright and crisp colors: strawberry, lime, grapefruit, and passion fruit. It's got 100 calories. It's gluten-free, no added sugar. They hit shelves. They did on March 1st. They're rolling out countrywide over the next 2 months. They'll be fully available nationwide May 1st, just in time for summer. So look for High Noon on Drizzly or at your local convenience or liquor store, or at visit highnoonspirits.com. Or just visit highnoonspirits.com to find it near you. Man, I'm stoked for that. But in the meantime, I've got my I got a pair going today. So thank you.
Hitter Blanco tequila. I got pineapple again, and I got a watermelon on deck.
I got grapefruit here, so we're hitting all the things.
They got a lot of different options, guys. A lot of different options. Kirk Kitayama wins the API. Nico Echevarria, I believe, I hope I'm saying that right, wins the Puerto Rico Open. Jin Young Ko wins the HSBC Women's World Champ in Singapore. Oh, guys, it's going to be a tough one to keep Amsterdam. I think we suspend habeas corpus. I think we suspend Amsterdam over the course of this episode, because I do not know how I'm going to be able to stop letting coverage takes seep through the coverage today.
I thought you were going to lead with Amsterdam at first there. I was like, whoa, this is unprecedented. This is martial law.
This is not in the agenda. Kirk Kitayama, I don't even know how to do the play-by-play from today, because it was one extremely clunky, and man, they struggled to keep up with everything that was going on. But kind of basically starts with Kirk Kitayama piping one OB on 9. He goes just left of the path, and I was watching without sound at that point, and I was like, we were on a phone call. We're doing a tech check when that happened, and I was like, told you guys, I was like, oh my God. Rules Twitter is about to go absolutely apeshit, because he's going to get relief from the path left-handed, just like Spieth did on Friday. But he ends up being OB.
Totally fine.
Totally fine. Totally fine. I mean, I had to stop you from getting upset about it, but it is totally fine and within the rules. Kitayama makes triple, but man, I said it right when it happened. I was like, dude, he's still not out of this somehow. And I believe, again, he hit another ball OB on Saturday. He also bogeyed the par 5 fourth. Kitayama probably should have won this tournament by like 6 shots if he doesn't have these massive screw-ups. But just stayed steady. He had a bad 3-putt par again on 16, but knocks it stiff on 17, birdies it, drives it in the left rough. And, I mean, Zinger had a great note. Like, 1 out of 4 guys get the ball on the green from the left rough, and he hits the perfect shot, hits it pin high, lags it up to the closest I've ever seen a lag putt go. I've never seen somebody mark one that close. Taps in for par and wins a designated event. I mean, it's listen, was that like the name that a lot of people were rooting for? I don't think so, but man, we got a lot of good action down the stretch today.
I like the mark. The mark was classy. It was a nice homage to Mr. Palmer. I thought, 72-72 on the weekend. Came out firing 67, 68, rounds 1 and 2. Man, there was some bad golf being played down the stretch, but it's a really, really tough golf course, right? The greens were completely baked out. I think at one point Zinger was saying that it was like putting on a cracker. Just like and then compounding errors, right? Like Rory trying to, I mean, he damn near shanked that ball out of the rough. You got Spieth kind of compounding errors, Spieth misreading putt after putt after putt. Nobody wanted this thing at the end, except for it seemed like maybe Harris English or Scotty Scheffler. But, I don't know. Just there was a lot going on there. And it's tough not to just start going down the leaderboard. So KBB, take it away.
I think that was a cool result just because in the week where we've been talking about can guys rise up through the ranks and become like the next great players? Are they going to be shut out? Like Kitayama is a great example of that. He struggled to get his card for a while. He scraped his way into designated events. He had a couple near misses. It showed he had a lot of game, whether it's a CJ Cup or was it Phoenix, and now he won. And that, I mean, what a sort of, I think, good storyline for the tour to sort of point to and say, look, if you think that, the play better thing is unfair, look, we have a great example of someone who just flat out learned to play better and knocked on the door a few times, and now he won.
Yeah, it's kind of seems like they've checked a lot of boxes with these designated events already. They got big name wins. They got, I assume, television ratings. I haven't, accumulated all that data. I assume they're getting a little bit better TV ratings in these. And now they've got the example to show the rest of the tour of like, this is not a closed off system. If you play good, it's not a popularity contest either. I mean, I think that's where maybe some of the most appropriate beefs with anything that was going on was kind of this, the PIP kind of, meandering its way into being maybe a part of qualification or making it mandatory to get, if you want to get your PIP, you got to play in all the events and things like that. And just giving the idea off, I don't think it's the reality, but giving the idea off that the tour is kind of turning into a popularity contest in some way when like, man, I've stewed a lot over all the changes and we're going to talk about that still a little bit more on the back end, but dude, play better still rules the day. And like, there's no better example of that than Kirk Kitayama, who just went out in a designated event that, look, the fields are still kind of big right now. And I want to talk to you guys about that, about, how, the success of the designated events right now, again, are under a different structure than they're going to be in next year. But like he would have been in under the next year's structure, and he goes out and beats Scheffler, Rory, Rahm, Tyrrell Hatton, Spieth. I meant Spieth, not Rahm there, because the buoy sank this week. But yeah, it seems like as about as good of a different box checked as far as if I'm the tour, I'm like kind of can take that to the membership to be like, that was probably a good thing.
Would he have been in?
He was 41st in last year's FedEx Cup, so he would have been into this event through that. And I again, I don't know how to do the math really quick on like would he have played his way in through other events, because he's had a really good start to the year, and he's been involved. He finished second in the CJ Cup, and would that have got him into some? And he finished tied for 23rd in Phoenix with I think a tough final round if I remember right. He could have. He would have been there, and I think that's a feather in the cap of this new plan.
Man, his move makes me uncomfortable.
I can't do it. It's hard to watch him play golf.
And yet, he led the field in greens and reg, too. I mean, it's getting it done. But man, I just feel like the big right miss is lurking at every moment.
It's a little like that, like the YouTube sort of guys, like I don't know, Skankus-esque, where you like take the club up and then you shallow the fuck out of it on the way down. It's definitely not something that like is sort of old school golf instructor taught, but man, it works. I love unique different swings. And so, it was fun to watch that hold up under mostly pressure.
And it was, I was walking the range at Waste Management and saw Tim Tucker walk by, and I was like, that's interesting. I thought he wasn't on Svensson's bag anymore. Sure enough, he's on Kirk Kitayama's bag, which, if you don't remember, Tim Tucker was famously Bryson DeChambeau's caddy, who there's still a story there that I'm sure we'll get told someday, but I don't know when the NDA runs out on that story. But Tim Tucker back on the bag, and by all accounts from people I've talked to, both out on tour and some people that know him off course, like what he's able to provide in terms of caddy advice. And I don't mean like, hey, keep your head up here, or like, oh, come on, like we can get through this. I mean, like knowing how wind works. Yeah. Knowing how wind works, knowing how putts break, like the intricate details of where the margins in golf lie. Like that is Tim's specialty. He doesn't like broadcast that out to the world in a lot of ways, but people speak to that, and he makes a difference when he gets on guys' bags. There was a reason Bryson was paying him like almost double what you pay a normal caddy week to week, because one, it was to put up with Bryson, but two, like Tim was the guy for that. And when he was on Svensson's bag, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but seem to, do a lot better. And if I'm Kirk Kitayama, I'm locking up that guy to a long-term deal.
Dude, you could see it on 18 when you listen to that conversation. He was like, all right, we need to land this here. Take me a practice swing in here. Tell me how much this is going to grab. This is the number I need you to hit. Like, here's where the wind is. We're going to hit 8-iron here. He was like, obviously the moment could have been way too big for Kitayama. You feel like you made a bad swing off the tee. Now you're kind of screwed. You got a bad lie. And you did a great job of just like slowing it down. Be like, look, if you get it into that bunker, we can get it up and down. But I think it's going to land here. And he hit and what turned out to be a really great shot.
I was gonna say, thank God for for Kitayama too, that it was mutual, right? That the decision for Bryson and Tim to split up.
By the way,
They both decided that they wanted to mutually end that the night before a tournament. Because man, I don't know if that would have been a tough scene if he wasn't able to secure his services.
Yeah, Todd Lewis was pretty adamant about that one. It was mutual, by the way. All right, it was mutual.
Yeah, that was fun to get your reporting discredited. That was great. All right, talk to me about Spieth here, TC. I was weirdly emotionally unattached to today because it still doesn't feel like it. And I know there was some great stuff that happened for him this week, and I wanted him to win, but it still wasn't like I wasn't cashing in my emotional chips today. It just still felt like it wasn't going to last for 72 holes.
Yeah, I would say you were beyond emotionally unattached. You were emotionally unavailable today for Spieth, and I think that definitely shined through. And I'll talk to him. I'll talk to Michael about it later, and we'll kind of assess where your fandom lies. But 4 birdies in the first 5 holes. I thought it was just red alert. I normally try not to tweet out the Charlie Steiner Sports Center commercial Y2K GIF until things are really off the hook. And 4 birdies in the first 5 holes, and then he pars 6, and then just kind of it just didn't get in a groove, especially down, like missed a bunch of putts, and didn't like the stroke looked fine. It looked like they just had the wrong read, right? And somehow, like the putting stats aren't bad. He didn't really hit it well today, which is strange because it seemed like he hit it well the rest of the week, and the putting was whatever. Today, let's see here. Looking at, he was 17th in putting today, 6th in strokes around the green, 56th off the tee today. So driver kind of abandoned him. But yeah, it just, I don't know. It still feels a little taped together, right?
Right. Like to me, like strokes gained around the green. He was first this week. That seems the least sustainable, right? Like that's the not what's going to project out for, he's got to start pounding greens. He's got to start rolling in mid-range putts, right? Couple chip ins this week. He had the chip in on 5 today, and he did hole some putts from the fringe in the earlier rounds, which I think really boosted that stat a little bit. But it was like, all right, he's not hitting it like great, and not putting it great. How is he doing this, right? And it came through, off green shenanigans that were going on here. But it's also kind of speaks to Bay Hill. Like I feel like you just end up with way more shots around the green on this course because of its wonderful elite design. I think that's it's such a tremendous challenge for it is a challenge for all the players. This is a tough viewing experience.
It's definitely a tough course to make putts on, right? Like those guys are holding on for dear life on, they're putting on a cracker, like Zinger said.
I wonder what kind of cracker he's thinking there. Like
I'm thinking saltine, right?
Saltine,
like a salt, like a premium. Yeah.
So you pointed out that I didn't realize that Arnold Palmer did not design Bay Hill, that he just bought it from somebody that was already designed, which I think is important to point out because I was under the impression that, and I think some people are too, that if you criticize Bay Hill, you were criticizing the sort of integrity of Arnold Palmer.
Palmer.
Like Mr. Palmer, excuse me.
Yeah.
No, he did not design it. It's just a sort of like a meh course.
Which I don't know if he tweaked it enough to the point where it is considered a Palmer design now, but like it was originally a 9-hole golf course by Dick Wilson, and then 9 more holes were added. I think my biggest issue with it, it's not on a bay and there are no hills. I don't know where the name Bay Hill comes from, and I hadn't thought of that until somebody tweeted that at me this week, but I think that goes to show like the entire facade that is this golf course. Like I don't know why. As a kid, again, Tiger Woods winning this place all the time. I thought the Bay Hill was like a tremendous golf course, and I played it once, and I've watched it a lot over the last 10 years or so. Can definitively say it is not. And I don't know if now is the time to dive into that, but that is it always makes for an exciting finish. There's like something to look for at the end, but the path to getting there Thursday through midday Sunday is really, really difficult.
Yeah, it's just a really like kind of charmless, right? Like long par threes, a bunch of weird angles over water. It's one of those courses where I'm like, yeah, like I'm cool watching guys play this, but I have no desire to play it, right? And then like I give the tour credit for how they've set up the golf course this is what 3 or 4 years in a row now that it's been set up like very, very different than they used to. And I think I don't know, like I think that makes it more interesting than it would be otherwise, right?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
I think that it's not a great course, but I do think that it actually serves a good purpose because it generally leads to like car wrecks down the stretch. And when the wind blows, it's really hard. I just think you can't really call a great course when you have to like take it up over people's houses to sort of have like an aggressive line and like challenge backyard pools. Like that just doesn't strike me as great golf.
Somebody replied to me with that.
Look at all these bays. How are you guys not saying? What's the issue?
Those are
Cody,
where's the
doesn't
hill?
a bay have to
Where's the
touch
hill?
sea?
Oh, I'll get the hills. 1 second.
Those are lakes, Cody. That lake
Could
is
be
different than a bay. Can you please
It could
put
have
up
initially been Bay Hill, BAE, in honor of Mr. Palmer.
Cody, I need you to.
I've said this on the podcast before. I just always would like to. They will always remember that I had a conversation with Justine Reed once. We walked Bay Hill, and she informed me that the reason that Tiger won so many Bay Hills is because it was like right by his house, and he could just come over and putt and read all the putts all the time, and that was sort of an unfair advantage. Which I just sort of stood there, like shaking my head, being like, "Oh, really? Like, you think Tiger came over and like just rolled some putts on the 18th green like every day just to kind of just in case?" So, but she believed it.
Somebody tweeted today that it's $4.95 to play Bay Hill with a cart.
Oh my god!
I did not verify that information, but yeah, just save your money on that one, please. But Cody, I need you to bring up that graphic of that goes in the geography books of like what a lagoon is and what an islet is and what a peninsula is, because I think that can bring a isthmus. Yeah, that can bring a lot of continuity to this discussion. I think, but I think we need a word for golf courses. I mean, it might be rough stopping, where there is just thick rough long of the greens, where it's like, oh, you drove it in the rough. I can guess where the next ball is going to go. It's going to go to the back rough, and it's going to be 2 feet off the green. It happens so often on this golf course. It happens at Torrey. And to me, that's a sign of some of the most boring golf you could watch on TV. Of the balls, there's a couple spots, like 15 has a spot long right where the ball can actually run away, and they need to add a ton more closely shaved areas around these greens to add add some intricacies to it, because the course is just not that well designed to play this firm, like these greens to play this firm. If these pros can't hold these greens, then no one on earth can, and then it just becomes kind of a weird chipping contest that I don't think is that fun to watch. But it
would be fun if like it was firm up front and there weren't lakes in front of some holes and you could run shots in, right? That would be creative and interesting, but it's not that.
It's not strategic at all. It's just like, dude, like the 6th hole is not strategic at all. It's like, dude, hit it right here. And like you get rewarded pretty much for bailing out here, because, playing close to the water doesn't make your angle any better. Doesn't make your next shot any easier. It's kind of a backwards golf course in that regard. So no, thanks. No,
there's some weird approaches too, like number 4, where you're kind of trying to miss that bunker and you're just hoping for a hop, right? I don't know. It's again though, I'd rather see it like this than soft and soaked.
Credit to the setup. Still not a good golf course, and we're probably going to go there forever. And because Arnie loved it. So, Mr. Palmer,
can I say something extremely disrespectful?
Please.
I love when we do this live, because this is uneditable.
Like, can we not make this a designated event?
Interesting. Talk to me.
I think the howls of protest would be enormous. I think honestly, my solution is that the designated events should rotate, and so that if API doesn't get to designated event 1 year, then you can't be like, well, look, just we're sharing the wealth, like we're moving it all around. Like this year, John Deere is a designated event. So, but I agree. Like I think the complaints would be huge and heavy about Arnold Palmer built this tour. How can you disrespect Bay Hill like that?
However, what if we took once every 5 years, you take this to, It's a designated event once every 5 years. You go have it at Oakmont in honor of Mr. Palmer up there every few years. And then you go to Latrobe Country Club.
Speak to
play.
me. Love it.
It'd be like the Chapultepec all over again. You know, let's get weird.
I was going to say this for later, TC, but it's so funny to me how the second you do any kind of criticizing of this course or this tournament at all, you are seen as being disrespectful to the king, when everything we just watched today was as big of a slap in the face to the king as way more of a slap in the face than anything we're capable of, right? I mean, they just turned that golf tournament into a commercial marathon, MasterCard slapping us in the face on repeat, missing golf shots everywhere, making one of the what's supposed to be, and what everyone tells us, one of the best events of the year, borderline unwatchable. Like, what's more disrespectful than that? And it just, I wonder,
Mr.
this
Palmer
allowed
he was a big
commercial
spokesperson.
True. Maybe that's fine. But it bothers me so much that I'm like, dude, everyone has the greatest things to say about Mr. Palmer. At no point did I get the impression that he was an egomaniac that needed his ego stroked in this way. So you end up in a way just going out of your way to do all of these segments about Arnie throughout the course of the week that by the end of it, you're so sick of it that you end up with this impression of, like, you get tired of it and you end up getting mad at Mr. Palmer about all this, which is like the exact opposite of effect I would expect you to want to have, or the feeling you would want your viewer to have by the end of the week. And it's so antiquated. It feels like they lay it on thicker and thicker every year. And it doesn't feel like it's their idea of honoring him, but it doesn't feel like an actual honor. And I had to get that off my chest.
I think it's lazy too. I think it's lazy.
Yes.
Television. Like it would be cooler if it was just subtle. Like everybody wears like an umbrella. Everybody, sort of rubs the umbrella on the first tee or something. And we don't like have to sort of beat you over the head with it. But that's not how it's going to be. It's just, all right, it's Bay Hill week. Let's just reboot an Arnold Palmer feature that we've, used some B-roll from his office that we've seen like 50 times. It's lazy. I'm sorry.
And I'm not even, that's
umbrella.
That's not even, that's not a shot at Sam Saunders. Like, he came in, did commentary, and I found that additive. Like, that was good. But man, it just like shoehorning it in every possible opportunity on top of the insane commercial load was like, dude, this looked like the antiquated PGA Tour that we've been fighting against for a long time. I think every single executive and anyone on any board or anyone that has to make any kind of decision about anything about the future of the PGA Tour should have to go into a conference room with no phone and no computer and no fast forward button and watch that 4-hour telecast with no interruptions. I want you to take all of that in. And I need you to walk away from that understanding what that looks like on this end, right? And know that the future of golf cannot look like what we just watched, because that was an abomination.
Just to be clear, are we doing Amsterdam now? Or
we're suspending
habeas corpus, DC. You can do it whenever.
Go everywhere.
I'd rather go down the leaderboard some more, and then
we can do that.
We can go in.
We'll go back into it.
Can we, before we go down the leaderboard, let's give some props to Kitayama on 17. Like, that was a stone cold great shot that no one was getting it close to that pin, especially right of it. There was, to hit that shot in that moment. I mean, I thought he was going to birdie 16 and hang on. Ended up birdie 17, which was much harder to do. So I feel like he deserves some credit. I keep wondering how Aaron Rodgers is going to take credit for this, because they're both from Chico. I know he's come out of the darkness. He's only given this one podcast, so hopefully he'll tweet out some credit for it. But no, it was just an awesome moment from a dude who, is not anybody's idea of a superstar. And I thought it was a cool win. It wasn't what I was rooting for, but I was happy with the way it worked out.
He had a good quote. He was like, hey, like, after the triple on 9, I'm fine. Like, I told Tim, like, I'm, I feel fine. I don't feel like this thing's slipping away from me. It's just one bad swing. And he proved that. I mean, he had 7 pars in a row, 10 through 16, a birdie on 17, and then just an all-world par on 18.
I thought that triple, when he hit the lip of the bunker too, might be a quad. I thought he was going to hit it behind the green, and get it caught up in there, and then hit it way too long and miss that putt coming back. So, like, in some ways, the triple after he nicked to the top of the bunker was a decent score.
I do want to call out Kitayama had an awful shirt on yesterday. on Saturday. The orange shirt. It was like it was the only people that are allowed to wear shirts like that are like or Uncle Juiced, Joost Louten, and the Dutch. That orange color was just horrific.
I think Saturday is the day, maybe it's unsaid or not, but to wear your like loudest like shit, right?
It's like the Arnie tribute stuff. Yeah. Again,
but Arnie wore good stuff.
I know.
He looked good. Like Ricky.
He would never. Arnie would not have worn that fucking terrible cactus shirt that had Arnie's name on it.
Why is there a cactus on it? There's no.
There's no cactus in the Bay Hill.
It's crazy, right? And then Spieth is wearing another, third grade clearance rack like youth XL shirt. God, there was some bad shit going on yesterday.
This is Fashion Corner, brought to you by TC. Should we talk about Rory? He comes out bogeys 1 and 2, birdies 4 and 5, bogeys 7, but birdies 9, birdies 10, birdies 12, birdies 13, gets it to 9 under par. Snuck up on, I think, everyone at that point because we kind of just saw him putting for birdie on 13. It was like, okay, this is happening. Steps up, did not know he was in the lead. I saw this from Will Gray that he didn't know he was in the lead and hits a shot. I think he's kind of sending one after the pin on 14, hits it in the bunker, makes bogey, then flips over, drives it in the left rough on 15 and hits a 8-foot apex shot out of the rough. It reminded me of his shot that he topped into the water at the Tour Championship that one year out of the rough. Makes bogey, 2-putt birdie on 16 and then pars the last two. Had a great look on 18 and I think everyone was hyping him up to make it, and it just missed on the low side. But this one kind of felt like buoy adjacent for Rory, like by far not his best stuff this week. And he finishes one shot out of a playoff and kind of looking for a little bit of that for Rory so far. He has not shown us a whole lot since he started his PGA Tour season, and a good sign of life without it feeling like he really missed that much of an opportunity today, in my opinion.
I think he's practicing load management till the Masters. He's been dealing with the problems of the tour. He's just kind of like, all right, whatever. None of this shit matters to my legacy. Like, I'm going to reshape the tour and I'm going to go win the fucking Masters.
Yeah. God, I'm on board with that.
Guys, real quick, circling back on a previous note, Bay Hill is named for the bay trees that were on the only hill on the property between 2 green and 3 tee. This is according to Wolfie, aka Bama Bearcat, and then he sent over a picture of a bay tree. Looks kind of like a mix between like a magnolia tree and an orange tree. So
okay,
there you go.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
It's load management season in the NBA, and I think with the rib, 40th in putting this week. Not a great putting week for him. Hit his irons well, great off the tee. I don't know.
I really, really thought he was going to make that putt on 18. I mean, just after he got a little bit of the read, I was like, this is going in. This is right in the jar. And he's going to be able to just basically sort of serve notice that he's back. And it's okay. Don't need him to be back right now.
Very interesting here. I'm on the tour website, the infallible tour website. It says that Rory, number 1 in strokes gained for the week, which would seem to be impossible because he didn't win the tournament.
That's T2.
At 10.423. And Kirk Kitayama, also number 1 in strokes gained this week. And that's at 11.42. So some very strange things going on in the data lake.
We'll keep an eye on that. Harris English went bogey-free this weekend and almost won the tournament without being shown until the 16th hole today. It was a vintage. It was like a 2016 CBS experience today in that regard. Again, kind of hard to comment on this because we didn't really get all that, but that is wildly, wildly impressive. The one thing I was going to say about like almost even the announcers at one point were kind of like shitting on the players of like nobody doing anything. When all of the best players in the world are doing the same thing and not doing like something's up, right? Like those greens must have been just a nightmare to putt. That was not everyone shitting the bed all at the same time. It was like, I don't know. There was just like no way to solve that puzzle. It didn't feel like.
Yeah. No putt was made outside of like 2 feet for like an hour and a half. Like that ought to tell you that the greens are pretty gross or crispy.
Except for all the putts that we didn't see Harris English make.
That is correct, yes.
I did at one point.
At one point said, maybe Liv did take all the good players, right? Because that last hour was very tough viewing.
Harris English made four bogeys all week. That's insane. I mean, he only made 12 birdies for the week, which
He flushes it, TC.
56 pars and 4 bogeys.
Which it's good to see him back. I mean, he was, had an incredible 2021, ended in a Ryder Cup, and ended up having to have surgery after that. Has been injured for quite some time, and it's no guarantee you're going to make it back from serious injury. I feel like, especially after talking with Smiley Kaufman, just of like the amount of things that can happen and how your body, and watching Will Zalatoris now is like, dude, I don't know when we're going to see you back at the full level because of kind of the injury you've gone through and how your swing is probably likely never to be the exact same ever again. So shout out to Harris for 800 performance on a really, really difficult golf course over this last week. So,
amen.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at FootJoy, the #1 shoe in golf. We love new shoes, guys. I had 6 new pairs of shoes show up on my doorstep over this weekend. We'll be debuting something. We're going to be filming something tomorrow. I'm going to wear a new pair of shoes for that tomorrow. We got the latest from FootJoy called Hyperflex. One of the things we love about FootJoy, they got a wonderful range of sizes and styles. A lot of us wear the Premier Series. You'll see that in a lot of videos, which is, the beautiful, the timeless, the modern classic golf shoe worn by many of the players on the tour. But also they have athletic shoes at FootJoy. The Hyperflex is a rocket ship. It's available for men and women. It's a sneaker-inspired design that has an incredible amount of golf-specific technology built in so that you get hyper power, control, and comfort. The outsole promotes stability and control exactly where you need it, giving you the absolute best platform to support the golf swing. And a foam midsole provides the perfect blend of cushioning to absorb shock and maximize energy that reduces foot fatigue. There's also a carbon version, gives you a carbon fiber power plate integrated in the midfoot to give you tour caliber stability and performance. FootJoy knows golf shoes better than anyone. It's why they've been around for 100 years. That's why they've been the #1 shoe on tour every year since 1945. And that's why the official golf shoe for no laying up. Check out the new Hyperflex at footjoy.com.
I got some spikeless ones for my trip. Not a huge spikeless guy. I'm going to try these out. I guess a couple of the courses we're playing don't allow any sort of even plastic spikes. So I got the Flex, and then got some of the other ones that these guys are wearing. I'm excited to test drive them. I'm a huge spike guy, so it's going to take a lot to get me out of the spikes.
Okay.
TC, I'm going to give you 4 minutes. 4 minutes. That's an extension of the usual, I think, 2.5 that we do. You can use it however you want to go down the leaderboard to say whatever you want about any players down the leaderboard.
Just to be clear, since then the clock hasn't started yet, because there's a designated event this week and there's a opposite field event. I'm going to have additional time on the back end to go down the field
you will not
down the leaderboard at the Puerto Rico. Okay,
4 minutes in total.
We'll save Pat Cantlay then, the tool man, for after this segment. Scheffler, I thought Scheffler was going to win this thing. Like going after 16, I was like, there's no way Scheffler doesn't win this thing. And then I don't know, just didn't materialize. Hatton, love when he's in the mix. 66 on Saturday. Davis Riley, 66 on Sunday. Trey Mullinax kind of gave us a scare there for a bit. Keegan Bradley, top 10. Cameron Young, 67, and then kind of faded. A little bit disappointed there. Another big showing from Jason Day, T10. We got to talk about Hovland. We'll save that. Want to give a shout out to Ryan Fox. Shot 67 today in those conditions, -6 on the weekend. That's pretty serious golfing. Matt Fitzpatrick, 76 on Saturday. Disappointing Saturday, but otherwise good week. Sahith continues to play well. Our guy Max, just steady Eddie, 70, 71, 71, 72. 3-putt at 18 on Sunday from about 11 feet, which was tough. I want to talk about Pearson Coody and Ludwig Aberg. I mean, what can we say, guys? It was just as impressive as it gets from these two young bucks. Coody with a 66 on Saturday. He's got great things in his future. Webb Simpson, T24, 76-66 on the weekend. Very, very interesting there. And then Ludwig, 73 on the weekend. Not quite to the level that he played with on Thursday and Friday, but overall, very impressive week. And then Ricky really faded. Ricky was in the mix, 68, 73, 73, 73. So a little bit disappointing there. We can talk Rahm on the back end here. Xander, really bad weekend, 75, 76. Zalatoris made the cut, but did not break 72 for the week. Uh,
I think I gave you too much time, but that was really efficient use of time. I think we got pretty far down there. That was 2 minutes there, but I'm gonna go ahead and cut you off because I think we do need to dive in on a couple more guys here.
Well,
I appreciate the down on the leaderboard, but let's talk
couple guys that missed cuts. Morikawa, 74, 73. That was disappointing. Yeah. Otherwise, I don't know. That's it. I'll cede the rest of my time.
Did Ludwig show you enough to make the Ryder Cup team?
He had already shown me enough. I don't have to do anything this week.
I just wanted to double check, make sure that we did our Ryder Cup teams earlier last week without you. I know it was real tough for you to see that happen, and you were outraged. Even though I tried really hard to go down the leaderboard for you, but
I think I'll have the last laugh.
I understand.
I think it is. I get so caught between these two things. Like, it's extremely impressive for Ludwig to finish top 25 at a designated event on the PGA Tour as an amateur. One. Also, Ludwig's 23, and he's not a 19-year-old rookie out there or amateur out there, right? It's not guys get a lot done at 23 at the professional level. He's essentially already a professional, is kind of what I'm already saying. It's not a upstart young buck out there that's taking the tour by storm.
He's a young buck. He's not the youngest buck. He's a young buck.
Yeah, okay. 23
he's not a fawn or anything like that.
Didn't Spieth have like 3 majors at 23?
Yeah, my auto default is that Spieth won 2 majors when he was 21, and
Spieth might be like on the LPGA plan though, where like their peak is from
burn
like
out too early,
23 to 26, and then he's done.
Start having kids, get to be 30, don't want to golf anymore.
That is interesting. We might have to think about that one a little bit more. Okay. Hovland.
Oof.
Hovland.
It's time, right? It's time we see something in one of these. He's around the leaderboard a lot. I don't know how this differentiates of how I think versus Finau, but man, he doesn't feel like a threat in these things. And I feel like I've seen it enough to say I'm kind of just disappointed in how he performs in these biggest events.
His short game stuff reminds me a little bit of like the Adam Scott putting thing, where like every month the narrative is like, oh, he's got it figured out. Like, he's been working really hard, and this is what's going to get him over the top. He's feeling really confident, and watch what happens this week. And then it's like, oh, well, I think they showed his one bunker shot, which looked almost like as bad as like an amateur bunker shot that went about a foot and then kind of got sort of wedged up against the lip there. Can't remember what hole it was on, but it was as bad of a bunker shot as you'll see a pro hit. I was like, wow, like just because you chipped in, once on Saturday does not make for a great shot.
You're talking about the guy who holed out for eagle during the open round, had a hole-in-one on the second round.
I am. I'm talking about his short game is not fixed.
Bunker shot during the third round.
His short game is not fixed.
He was 71st in strokes gained around the green this week. Can't have
with all that. It was just junk. He just had one good round.
Wow. The Sarge comes in and Sully just lays him down with the 71st. Thank you.
What's the yardage limit for where it's considered around the green versus approach?
I want to say it's inside 40 yards. I could be wrong with that, but
because I thought the worst shot he hit all week was, the approach into 16.
Oh, so bad,
egregious.
That
wasn't even in the realm.
I think he was trying to cram a 9-iron. He had 178 back left flag, like trying to draw one back in there and stuff it and make eagle. Like he needed to do something kind of crazy at that point. But yeah, just dunked it right in the water and made bogey, and that was. I'm not as mad about that one as I am all the stuff on the front nine, really, and making double on 8. And because it felt like he was 7 under par. The lead ended up being at 9, or Kitayama ended up at 9. Like, I think he thought he needed eagle there. So I don't blame him too much on that one.
Solid. To your point on Ludwig, Ludwig's 23. Hovland just turned 25 like a month and a half ago. I don't know how to analyze or what to think about Hovland, right? He's won several times around the world since the start of 2020, right? He's won the Puerto Rico Open, twice at Mayakoba, weaker field BMW International Open, and then the Dubai Desert Classic, which is a certified BDE, beat Blandy in a playoff. And then he won back-to-back Hero World Challenges, which you guys know how I feel about the Hero World Challenge. All right.
Oh, yeah.
And then he faded at St. Andrews last year. And that was by far his best showing in a major championship. He's just always around on the weekends and just seems to kind of recede from view in the weirdest possible ways, which is someone who struggles to chip and just with strokes lost around the greens. I definitely understand it, but also it seems like he should be hitting it. Like, he's such a good iron player. It seems like he should be hitting his irons better on Saturday and Sunday and not putting himself in some of these positions as well. Like he did that at Torrey, I think last year. I don't know. Just I'm very befuddled by Viktor Hovland.
Yeah, I don't know how to make sense of it really either. I mean, the talent is obvious. The floor is so high. I mean, he just hits the ball so damn good, and it just doesn't feel like he has that gas pedal when he gets into when he gets into contention. It just doesn't feel like everything's about to go right for him, like some of the other dudes that that end up winning a lot. But again, like I got, the more I talk about it, the more I'm like, dude, you're talking about Finau right now. Like, I don't know what the difference is here, but
that's interesting.
It is, right? It is. I don't think that he's dealt with the same bad luck that Finau has dealt with, but we can look into that if we need to. But yeah, and Rahm, how about Rahm? He goes out and shoots 65, starts at 7 under par to start the week, and then follows it with 76. He did not have the driver working this week. He was done quite early on this day. I'm trying to even find him on the leaderboard. What did he finish? He finished T39, still finished in the top 40. But yeah, went all the way back to even par from or 1 over par he shot for the week. Drove it. He lost almost 7 shots. He lost over 6 shots off the tee this week. So that is your answer.
Pretty wild. Like, he shot 65 in the first round and he was 90th in strokes gained off the tee.
Yeah.
Like that's insane.
So the ball striking was not there this week. I didn't love this golf course for him, but I thought he was golf course proof going into this week, and ended up that was not the case. So not a real actual cause for alarm, but interesting.
Rahm, 90th in strokes gained off the tee on Thursday, first in strokes gained tee to green on Thursday.
That's how good his approach and
wild
around the green play was. Yeah,
I think it's kind of good for like him to get a reset a little bit, or him to kind of recede from view a little bit and be able to recharge. It seemed like it was a little bit of a mirage on Thursday, and now it's like, all right, like, you know what, you kind of coast this weekend and recharge the batteries a little bit. Big stretch coming up.
He's got to drive it a lot better. I think that's even during his hot streak, he at times would get a little squirrely with the driver and be punching out, but he would just keep getting up and down for par, on everything. But maybe the pressure of the Grand Slam is starting to weigh on him at this point. And I'm starting to wonder if he can win the Grand Slam this year. I was more confident 2 weeks ago than I am now that he will win the Grand Slam.
Somebody pulled the odds for that, which I can't remember what they were.
It's like $1 million to 1.
Yeah.
Chris, I don't know why you put this on me, but I'll rise to the challenge.
I think Rahm too, like there's probably more penalty for missing the fairway and being pretty erratic off the tee at Bay Hill than there is at say Torrey or Riviera, right? And that's not, it's just a different style of golf course, right? More bunkers, more weird shit, right?
Cantlay getting stuff done around the house on this weekend.
Productive weekend warrior, man. He was there early and often. Had his punch list there on Sunday afternoon. Kind of snuck in the clubhouse there, and I would say he did a little bit of an inspection there. 68, eagled 12, 33 on the back 9 today. Just I'd say really productive week.
Got it done ahead of the timeline and under budget was what it felt like by the end of that project. A T4 finish, which is going to pay him quite handsomely $800,000 this week. Everybody at T4 being $800K.
Sand down a few edges, things are going to be fine. Just go finish up the polishing.
That thing is in the ether now. The Toolman bit is in the ether, and DeWalt's going to get a lot of run for that one. I have a feeling.
Yeah, it's just cool that he's like. He can ensure absolute confidence for the toughest conditions. His tools are guaranteed tough, man. Even Doug Ferguson was picking up on it today.
Right. I have to pivot to one thing before we move on. I have one thing I'm predicting, and I will apologize if it doesn't happen. I think Jason Day is going to win this year.
Yeah.
Jason Day keeps trending. He's figuring some things out. Still a great putter. 10th this week, right? I don't think we saw a single shot of him, but I think he's going to win. It'll be the first time in 5 years he's won. I think it's time. He's almost back. So some version of back.
I think he might have a good look next week.
Yeah.
At players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, his strokes gained this year is 2.03, which would be third best in his entire career. And it's not, it's putting boosted, but he is big time gaining with approach, big time gaining off the tee. He's hitting the ball great, and he happens to be making a shitload of putts. He's 7 top 20s in 10 starts, not even counting this week. So 8 in 11 starts. It's very good and looks sustainable. It's not like a weird hot streak of unsustainable activity. So
I watched him a little bit of Riv, and it doesn't look like he's trying to just absolutely fucking destroy the ball on every single swing anymore. It looks a lot more like in rhythm and sustainable. So, which
is fun because it's he's a great putter, right? Mm-hmm. He's not a world-class driver of the golf ball anymore. That's not his thing. Mm-hmm. I think the same thing with Webb Simpson. I think Webb Simpson, we're going to be hearing from him in the next 3 to 6 months. I'd be remiss if we didn't mention Corey Connors as well. He was in the mix a lot those first 2 days. He shot 66 on Friday and kind of faded on Saturday. But I feel like we saw a lot more of Corey Connors this week than a T21.
Big of you to give respect to the Canadians like that.
Just trying to Porter did not. Back. Porter listed all the big names that were in the top 15 and left out Connors, and that did not. That didn't go well for Porter this weekend, unfortunately.
Tough.
Do we have any more Amsterdam stuff we want to get to, or did we appropriately cover it?
Fuck yeah. No, oh my God. I don't even think it started.
Okay, let's go. Bring it on.
I mean, that was one of the worst. That felt like 2015, 2016 era CBS. Just so many taped shots, no flow whatsoever, no great timing leading in and out of the shots, lingering on the wrong stuff, skipping the wrong stuff. We had the CEO interview today.
Oh my God.
She was the global strategy officer. I actually felt bad for Cheryl. They kind of iced her. She was in the booth almost as long as Jack was, 10, 12 minutes. They had to cut away from her because so much shit was going on. Poorly timed, poorly placed Mr. Palmer tributes. MasterCard just extra thirsty. Listen, I know you got to pay for this stuff somehow. CBS seems to be figuring it out, guys. NBC is backsliding. It was a fucking abomination this week. It was so bad. I just I wanted to gouge my eyes out on Saturday. The commercial load and even when they weren't at commercial, the amount of clutter. And then the Ricky interview. They did the on Ricky Saturday. Interview. It was terrible. No, and for no fault of Ricky's at all. But just asking generic questions about Arnie, and then the important shot on that hole was the third shot.
Mm-hmm. We didn't even see it.
And they went to playing through. Unbelievable.
It was one of the worst. I think it was one of the worst regular season broadcasts I've seen in a while. Sorry to say, but it just was. I think that the playing through stuff has actually given them license to be worse because they feel like, well, you asked for us to show shots. And so what happens is they come back from commercial, show 4 shots that are clearly on tape, no setup in any of them. We don't understand what the stakes are in any of it. And then we go back to commercial. It was just no chance that on repeat for an hour.
They have no chance to stay live. You're literally never going to get live. I have to have a computer up to see where they ever show Kitayama and Hovland's drives on 16, on the 70th hole of the tournament.
A bunch of Scheffler's approaches. Just egregious. And I feel bad for the talent because they're being put in terrible, terrible spots, terrible situations.
And it's not even Tommy Roy's fault. He's not choosing we need to go to double the commercial load this week. Let's do that. His hands are completely tied. It's the damn bean counters. And I just need someone at the tour or someone at some high level to take some fucking pride in this product, right? I feel like the mark when I'm trying to get excited for the future of the PGA Tour. I really am. Like, I think there is a lot to be excited about, and I've tried to give them a ton of leeway to say, like, hey, 2023 is the bridging year, but like, this is the kind of stuff that I'm like, oh yeah, dude, like you tried to like hype it. You know, for years we got so much feedback about being way too negative on everything we said, and like, all right, you're right. I'll try to look at like the positives going on here. And then a weekend like this happens, and it's like, dude, I don't know if this is solvable. I really don't. It's just embarrassing, and it was not how I would definitely not how I would choose to spend my weekend if I didn't have to.
Also, you're coming off like this huge moment of like, all right, they got this Netflix show, which is like my kids have now watched the whole thing twice. All right, so that'll show you like there's all this like, you know, your renewed interest in golf, and so you have all these potentially new eyeballs. Imagine like trying to sit down if you weren't really into golf previously and watch this broadcast. It just, we don't want to bitch about this stuff. Like, people are like, you guys complain about a lot of shit. Yeah, I would rather talk about literally anything else, but it's become really frustrating to sit there and not be able to watch golf. I understand you got to have commercials, and I understand you got to pay for this. Soccer found a way, and it's a different sport, obviously, but to have the stuff ongoing, just give me that for the last hour. Put some bunch of commercials in at least. You can do whatever. We can do playing through whatever, but give me an hour of uninterrupted coverage or something at the end so we can actually appreciate the most interesting part of the sport. But they still will not do that. That's like, whoa, that's prime time to jam more of these in.
We had that in Hawaii. Yeah. What happened? Where did Callaway go? He started out so promising with this whole thing.
The answer to that is that was Golf Channel, and network is a different cost of that. And I somebody tweeted this out. I forget who said this today. I want to give credit, but somebody said, like, all right, if you buy a title sponsorship for a designated event, you've bought the last hour. Like, you can't double dip.
Put a damn MasterCard logo that takes up a third of the screen. I don't even care at all. Like, superimpose it so that it's basically like a filter on the whole screen, and the whole screen is
make them play with MasterCard ball. Yeah, like, I just want to see the
unbelievable, man. Like, and that's the whole thing with how it fits into the larger ecosystem. The whole point of the designated events is to improve the ratings and to make these contracts worth more. All they're doing is just racing to the bottom, trying to squeeze every little bit of commercial inventory in. And it blows my mind that like it's basically commercials with a side of golf. And the golf is just, there's no emphasis on the actual golf either. It's just a loose collection of random shots. And I get it. It was tough this weekend because there's 8 to 10 guys, in the mix, probably more than that. But like that's a lot of guys to track. Well, but man, that was one of the poorest performances from a network golf broadcast in the last decade.
Well, it didn't even sound like they were excited either. Like, it's very hard when Dan Hicks, it just sounds like they weren't up for the event. I don't know how many times I heard Smiley, but it wasn't a lot. Woody did an awesome job every time they went to him, clearly setting up shots and everything going there. But it seemed like they were just so rushed to show these shots that were clearly on tape that, like, Smiley or whoever else it was had no chance. Like, it was just flat the whole time. And it's the first time out of one of the designated events this year where you like really felt that way.
And worth the whole thing. Sorry.
Players is going to be different. Like, Players is a different model, different telecast. It is less commercials. I think they do the last hour commercial free and always have. I think if I remember right, we probably did a very similar segment at this time last year to be like, watch how different this next week will be. And the load is not like that much different. It's just a actual television product this coming week at the Players. It is something they've always done really well. It is nice to watch on television, and Bay Hill is not.
This week was supposed to be that from last week too. What is the point of doing these designated events? Because last week was supposed to be this shit product, not this week.
Yeah.
So we can't always kick the can down the road and say, but the Players is our crown jewel, because that's what this is supposed to be too.
Dude, the craziest part is like, it's a bad look for the title sponsor. They're jamming all this extra shit in there, and the title sponsor is the one that's getting boned because the overall ratings are probably going to go down, at least in the macro sense. Yeah. And then, like, they keep doing all the I saw more damn promo for The Voice, Universal Studios, the fucking Universal. I saw 6 or 7 roller coasters this weekend. Ridiculous. Like Brian Roberts and the gang over at Comcast NBC. Get out of here, man. Like, have some pride. It's a disgrace.
Or just make me pay like I don't know, $400 a year so I can get like a better feed for this. You tell me what I got
pay
to
for
fucking pay.
Peacock. I pay for Peacock, and it's even worse. You don't even get playing through when I'm watching it while I'm on the road or something. I've had to go to a coffee shop and watch some this week, and I pay for that, and they just go straight to commercial. And you don't even get playing through on it. And they come back and say, "You saw Viktor Hovland and playing through." No, I didn't.
Solly's paying for the cock. God, KVV, I'm dying. Somebody commented, alpha move from KVV calling in from his steam room.
I really got to get the lighting squared away. You guys got all these fancy cameras. You know, I joined a podcast company. I didn't know we were going to be like on camera every week. I don't know if I'm pretty enough for that.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I felt like an enormous step backwards. And the walk and talk was a total miss. And I'm just kind of amazed by it all. It's very, very tough stuff.
Walk and talk was bad. I will say this too
thoughtless.
on Golf Channel, like pre-network coverage, Sands was tough to listen. I thought Sam Saunders did a really good job, but Steve Sands it's too much, man. You lay it on way too thick on how big and grand like everything is. It's too much. I don't want any more of it.
Which, you know what, I give Steve Sands a pass because he's like a longtime Golf Channel guy, Arnie, Orlando guy, all that. I thought Sam Saunders was fantastic. I kind of had to do a double take. I'm like, wait, like why isn't this guy a commentator? Like he's doing a fantastic job.
Because he doesn't lay it on thick. Like he just like that again. Like it. That is, if I was Mr. Palmer, if I was the spirit of Mr. Palmer, like that's the way I would want to be honored. Like my grandson going up there talking golf and just like being about the product versus like, shoehorning everything and shoving Mr. Palmer down everyone's throat. Like, come on. Like there's a huge difference between the two. And again, this just reeks of like mid 2000s to like 90s PGA Tour golf that has never evolved. And there's a bunch of like good stuff going on. The Genesis seems to continually get better. A lot of the California events and West Coast events, waste management just seems to get better. And this one just seems so stuck. So stuck. That was the first thought I had the first time I walked into Bay Hill was like, oh my God, this place is dated. And everything about the broadcast and the way this tournament presented is dated and needs to move on.
Which again, it just doesn't, the entire system and the entire evolution of the tour does not make sense unless they fix this.
Exactly. It's all
Straight
for
up.
waste. It's all wasted unless this like gets a lot better, like a lot better. I said this earlier too. I was like, Jon Rahm should come off the golf course today and he should go get in the booth and he should go talk golf for 15 and 20 minutes. And all of the replies I got on Twitter and text messages I got from other tour guys, oh, Rahm would never do that. Rahm would never do that. It's like, one, I have heard that he was interested in doing that at some point this year and it didn't end up working out with one of the networks, whatever. But I would say that message is directed at both Rahm. It's directed at Rahm's team. It's directed at the tour. It's directed at the networks of like, everybody's got to give in here. Everyone's got to pitch
you
in.
want PIP money?
You got to start making this more. You got to stop telling me why that can't happen. I do not give a shit anymore why that can't happen. If you cannot tell, there's been somebody knocking at your door for a long time and has driven a lot of good change that's gone on in the organization. But like, I got to stop hearing no to an answer like that because I'm sorry. Listening to Jon Rahm talk about golf is more interesting than anyone else that's on the air doing it. Like it would just be better television. And that kind of stuff is like, I don't understand the people on Twitter that get mad at me for suggesting something like that and say, oh, that would never happen. It's like, why won't you just challenge people involved in this to give you a better entertainment product? What's the reason for sticking up for these people at this point?
It's kind of a cheat code for PIP. Like
100%.
part of the PIP calculation is Nielsen, how much time you spent. Well, you know what? Jon Rahm finished 45th or 50th this week, but you know what's going to help the hell out of his Nielsen ratings? Being on TV for another 12 to 15 minutes while he's in the booth. Right. And
that's all going to come from like a group buy-in, right? I was texting with Harry Higgs this week, kind of talking about, he said he had dinner with Rory and Max before the Seminole Pro member. And he's like, one of the biggest takeaways I had was like, dude, the energy around that table was all about like the ways we can evolve the entertainment aspect. Right. And I was like, all right, well, shit, you're kind of giving me a little hope here in terms of like, these guys are going to start getting it. And here I'm just throwing out an idea of like, here's a way you guys can accomplish a lot of things when it comes to the entertainment aspect of golf. And gosh, it's just like really frustrating to get hit with a no out of, without even giving any thought. So,
and Sly, from doing these major deep dives, remember who used to get in the booth like right after he'd come off the course is Jack Nicklaus.
Yes.
and he would break down golf like, "Oh, you got to hit that shot here, and this is right. This is a really tough thing." And it was awesome. Like, we all have complicated feelings about Jack, but like, it was really cool in those old ABC broadcasts to see him like break down, like, well, this is a tough shot that you have to kind of, do this on. And man, I would love that if Rahm would do that.
Gary Player did it at the Masters. I remember one year when somebody was like, "Hey, Gary, what do you think of all these foreigners up here on the leaderboard?" And he's like, "Well, I'm a foreigner. Golf's a global game." But like
teeing up KVB.
Yeah, I know that was too good, too easy.
I'm trying to do less impressions there. The people are
real quick. I want to call one more thing out just from the actual golf from the tournament. Cyril Hatton is playing some very, very, very good golf right now.
Yes.
T4 this week, T40 at Genesis, but T6 at Phoenix, T7 at Abu Dhabi, T2 at the DP World Championship, last tournament he played last year, T13 at the CJ Cup, T7 at the Dunhill, solo 8th at the Italian Open.
So he's going through all the leaderboards.
He's been playing very good golf since about mid-year last year, since like the PGA.
Yeah, he's great. I think he's just a fun character to have around. I very much love. I don't want him to change one bit. Please do not stop doing your thing, Tyrrell.
Somebody tweeted the GIF of Dennis Rodman doing the rebound thing. It said Tyrrell after every missed putt. Oh yeah, it went that way. It went that way. It went that way. Yeah, I had him to win this week. That would have been a nice little boost. Almost 3 weeks in a row, but like we're getting there. We're getting hotter.
Solly, do you want to shout out JT for winning? I think we went through all the events this week, but JT and Walrath won the Seminole Pro Member Gross Division.
I didn't think I knew that. I did not know that.
We didn't shout them out. So
good for them. JT won another limited field event. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
No live guys at the Seminole Pro Member too. I don't want to bring up live, but
come on, KVV, stick to the real sports here. Speaking of commercials, it's time for our Yeti coldest moment of the week. The Rambler 18-ounce bottle is your must-have cold drinking vessel that should be immediately added to your bag. The Tough bottle, double wall vacuum insulated to keep your water ice cold until the last sip. It's crazy how long your water will stay cold in this. It's dishwasher safe for easy cleaning. Comes with the standard chug cap lid, the shatter-resistant drinking spout that allows for easy pulls on the go. I use so many different kinds of Yetis. I got one right here. I got the 20-ounce like twist top, all the good stuff.
I got my Roost Club Championship one.
I got Yetis are popping up everywhere. If you don't have one, you're truly missing out. Coldest moment of the week. This is we're doing this segment this year, and we will continue to get extremely loose with how we define the coldest moments of the week. But I'm going to go with the MasterCard interview right as the tournament got good. This was cold water on the entire tournament. It was so comically poorly timed yet again. It was, again, like I said earlier, just going back to the era of golf when this fit into the telecast somehow, and it definitely no longer does in the social media era. And that was the coldest moment of the week because it was like jumping in a 38-degree pool, and it just ruined the entire vibe of the afternoon. TC, what do you got?
Gosh, a lot of different ways we could go with this, Solly. I was going to go with Kamayu Johnson signing for the wrong score. That was really, really tough. And then some of his Twitter replies afterwards were even tougher. Just own it, dude. But I'm going to go with Danny Mazrin in the New Zealand Open. According to the New Zealand Open leaderboard on their site, he shot 71-70. And then he cooled off drastically going into the weekend. He shot 105-88 in the weekend.
71-70, 105.
It could be a glitch. There was some other like crazy bad scores. I don't know why it says he missed the cut, but whatever happened, this is on the official site. So go at the New Zealand Golf Association and the Asian Tour. If this is false, but I'm just going off of what's on the internet. The internet's never been wrong before.
I want to write a story about this. This is amazing.
Could it have been that he like had a his driver was non-conforming and got a 2-shot penalty on every hole or something like that? Like that's the only way you can explain 105.
But all right, but like wouldn't he just be DQ'd
I don't know
if he teed up again after the first round with the non-conforming driver?
I don't know. That's impressive. That's cold, TC. I'll give you that one. That was a good one. KVV, what do you got?
Cold.
I'm going to go with Jordan Spieth's putter. Yeah, sorry. I mean, I
Is
know
this
it
an
was,
eye test thing?
I mean, we could sort of debate whether it was reads or whether they were shoves, but Spieth missed a 5-footer on 14, 3.5-footer on 15, a 5.5-footer on 16 while he was still tied for the lead, and an 8-footer on 17. He didn't made enough putts early to make you sort of believe that it's fixed, it's fine, he's good. But no, narrator, that did not turn out to be the case. So cold putt. Spieth probably could have finished at 10 under, I think, fairly easily with just an average putting performance on the back nine, but it was pretty bad.
Yeah, that's cold. I hate you for that, KVV. But
I know, I'm sorry. Yeah.
At the Puerto Rico Open, Nico Echevarria, again, I hope I'm saying that right, wins. Akshay Bhatia finishes second and gets special temporary membership on the PGA Tour as a 21-year-old. That seems quite noteworthy. TC, you want to go a little? You went under time on down the leaderboard on the main event of the week. I'll give you 30 more seconds to shout out anything else you'd like.
Yeah, that's big of you. Akshay, first in the social media rankings this week, though. The tour just continues to post about him incessantly. They're obsessed. Nate Lashley, the pre-tournament favorite. Again, Nate Lashley, the tournament favorite.
Nice.
Finished T3. Friend of the program, Carson Young, T3, 71-71 on the weekend after a 63 to open up. Kind of some blasts from the past. I just had a lot of guys here to shout out on that front. Michael Kim up to 104th. He finishes solo 5th at Puerto Rico, and he jumps one spot in the FedEx Cup rankings from 105 to 104. Wesley Bryan, solo 6th. Cody Gribble, T7.
Wow.
The big rig, Harry Higgs, T7. Saw a lot of Harry Hall this weekend. He was T7. Bill Haas, Ryan Gerard. He's got a great story. Still kind of the Cinderella story goes on there. He was T11. Jeff Ogilvy, T11. Kind of a great week from him. KVV, your boy Grayson Murray, T15, along with Chris Stroud, Solly's boy. And then just to go down, this was a really bleak field. I mean, I don't think we can overstate that. Omar Uresti in the field this week. I didn't see if Glenn Day teed it up. I know he had gotten in off the alternate list at one point. But Jonathan Kay, Ryuji Amada, Ted Purdy, Cameron Beckman, Carlos Franco, Frank Licklider 2.0, Jeff Overton.
Why do they need this many spots opposite another event that's happening that has 120 players in it? I don't understand that. Like it just makes for such a joke field at the bottom of it. You got to call up at pretty much anyone that has ever had status on tour to be able to fill out the rest of this field. But I don't understand why they need to do that. But
wait, can't they just put like everyone in the Corn Ferry Tour like in this event? Like, wouldn't that be a better sort of more fun thing?
It would.
They got to figure out
tour event.
A way to blend Corn Ferry and FedEx point leads and stuff like that for that to end up working out.
It's a PGA Tour start though, and you know what? James Hahn wants to talk about how the tour is set up correctly right now. Cool. Here's a great example, bud. Like Jay and the crew are being bonused off of total starts available on the tour, and this is total starts, right? This one counts just as much as a start at Eastlake,
I think it goes something off of like there's a minimum threshold of starts, but it's actually off of money given out per start or something along those lines. But it's again, like we've covered in recent weeks. I think
they changed that here in the last year or two.
I'm all for Puerto Rico getting some charitable donations, whatever. What is the history of the Puerto Rico Open? I mean, is this like a long historic event that the tour needs to sort of stick with? I guess I'm totally ignorant on this, and so please fill up my inbox or whatever. Anybody who actually feels like no, like Lee Trevino won here and such. Like I have no concept of why this event needs to exist. Other than I concede the charitable element is probably great for the community and a place that has been beat up pretty bad by various natural disaster events and stuff. So
it's a territorial open.
It is.
You're kind of opening up a can of worms. Somebody in the comments is saying Roberto Castro couldn't get into Alex Higgs saying Roberto Castro couldn't get into the Champions Tour event this week, but he got into the Puerto Rico Open. Which that's jarring, man. Like
Roberto Castro is 50.
I don't know.
Does he mean?
No. Roberto Castro is my age. I don't know.
Yeah.
Who he's
Did he mean Carlos Franco? Maybe.
Yeah.
Come on, Alex, get it together. Get it together. We're putting you up on the screen here, and you're giving us horrible information. On the LPGA front, Jin Young Ko returns to the winner's circle for the first time since this event last year. She wins the official HSBC Women's World Championship in Singapore, not the What About China Women's World Championship. This was her 14th career LPGA Tour win. She had fallen to 5th in the world after being number 1 for almost all of 2022. This was it's made for some nice evening viewing, nighttime viewing this week. But man, they had a lot of weather issues this week.
It was so wet. They were squeegeeing the greens during play yesterday, and it hadn't even rained that much during the final round. The first few rounds were drenched City, USA, there at Sentosa. But Jin Young Ko, just sharp, man. She's got that high finish. There, it was very good to see her back in the lead in the winner's circle. Nelly, a little bit rough around the edges. Didn't have her best stuff, at least last night. I didn't watch the third round. But Nelly just kind of like dumped one in a bunker pretty early in the round and just never really found any flow. Made a couple late birdies to kind of get things going a little bit. But yeah, it was it was just a really tough week. It didn't seem like there was much flow at all. I hadn't seen that much rain in an event since like the Byron Nelson, one of those last Byron Nelsons they had at Trinity Forest.
So they got more rain in like 2 days than they get for like the entire month of February or something like that.
Yeah.
But
it was like 14 inches of rain. It was insane. But awesome leaderboard. I mean, just Allison Corpuz. Want to give a special shout out to her. She's playing excellent golf right now, and I thought Lynn Grant. I was expecting more from her in the final round. I think she shot 73 in the final round, but great leaderboard. Danielle Kang played well. Yuka Sasso flashing some form there. Our friend Madeline played well. So excited for the LPGA to kind of get rolling, get some cadence going to their schedule. It's tough these first 3 months of the year.
It's a tough. It's kind of like the tour, just the super staggered, like, all right, the year starts now. All right, the year starts now. This one kind of feels like the beginning of the tour event. I've got to give a shout out to, we've added a couple, 2 so far, these special LPGA episodes that Big Randy has the lead on. Cody's a big part of those. TC, you've been on those. You guys had a great discussion on following the Saudi Ladies International, just about the complicated feelings all around that, as well as kind of profiling some newcomers on tour. And those have been awesome deep dives. If you're looking to get further into the LPGA tour, I cannot recommend those enough. You guys are making me drive around in circles as you guys go about finishing those. So
I was shook when Cody said that Lucy Lee might be the number 1 player in the world someday. That was his prediction. I was like, whoa, that's a bold. I love it.
We can say whatever we want on this podcast. It doesn't matter. So
I understand.
Give me a couple of years and we'll see where we're at.
Okay.
Cody was catching a lot of flack for people saying that he didn't fill out his top 10. He only got like 7 people down the list, and then just gave up.
It's a bad week to joke about counting to 7, or else I would have jumped all over that. But with respect to Mr. Johnson, I will not go down that list.
So we had a special emergency podcast come out Wednesday when the changes to the PGA Tour, the designated event model, was rolled out. I'm not sure exactly how we want to do this tonight, guys, about, I don't want to rehash a ton. I'm going to assume not everyone has gone and listened to that one, although it was pretty highly trafficked. But I'm curious as the week has rolled along, as we've maybe learned a few more details. We kind of recorded that shortly after the announcement. We're reacting kind of in real time. If you guys feel any differently based on kind of reading some people this week, hearing some feedback from people, some of the announcements, and any kind of updates to what our thoughts were to the changes to the tour structure for next year.
I'm curious as to how some of the details are going to work out. I mean, I think we still don't know what events, if any, are going to have cuts. I mean, mostly, obviously, the cuts are going to be eliminated in the designated events, but there still seems like some of that is up for debate. Maybe, some of the pushback will create some more discussion around that. I mean, I don't feel like the cut stuff is the most important issue to focus on, although I would like a little bit of clarity about it. I still feel like it mostly is a great way to sort of look around and be like, play better. You know, that's ultimately what will win the day. And I think we're going to have to talk about Mr. James Hahn's comments here to Golf Week in a few minutes. But I think that for the most part, this is an opportunity to like actually help out in some ways the lower tier events. I think that the narrative of like, oh, they fucked the lower tier events, to me, it feels totally backwards, actually, because I think, you know, you and I talked solid throughout the week about, look, like not a single person in the top 80 went to the John Deere last year. All of a sudden, if you cut that at 70, that's 10 more guys who might say, all right, I'm going to add the Deere because that's an opportunity for me to play. And so I'm ready to kind of tee it up here. And you know what? This idea that like, oh, well, if the guys who are in the designated events start to play poorly and they slip down the list and they have to add some more events, like, okay, you go to the Deere now, or you go to the freaking TPC Craig Ranch. Like, there's going to be like definitely opportunities for those events to be able to sort of showcase like, yeah, actually we do have like more players in it this year that we wouldn't have had in previous years. So I'm skeptical, but also like kind of optimistic about some of it in the long run.
First of all, nobody needs to go play TPC Craig Ranch. Nobody. Okay.
You know, like up there, we start to slide down the list of
like,
you know, potentially
like where
missed
were all
designated
these
events.
people? Like, where was everybody complaining when the tour oversaturated the schedule? Right? Like was everybody wistful and pouring one out for all of these lower tier events when they kept adding and adding and adding and added the fall series and added just kept glomming onto the schedule? And to me, it's like, you know, James Hahn wants to argue that guys are, and we'll get there, but that oh my gosh, guys might drop down and add an event to their schedule and then play well in it and earn their way back in. It's like, yeah, like that's the whole point, man.
Yeah.
that's what they're supposed to do. Like that shows that the system works. If a guy drops down and then doesn't win or doesn't play well, then that's not gonna benefit him, right? Like he's getting it through competition. Like they kind of already screwed over the lower tier events where it's like now, like this is a lifeline for them. It provides context. It provides, there's just such a, I don't know. The ecosystem was so broken already to where it's like, I feel like we're fixing it. And we've been talking about the death panel for so many years now. And there's the tour's bloated, the schedule's bloated, the member list is bloated. There's, you know, 125 guys with cards, but there's really 215 guys with cards and guys can't get into events and all this. And it's like, cool. Well, now, you know what? Everybody has a pretty clear picture of where they're going to start their season. And then there's relegation up and down week to week, which is all we can ask for. And this whole pods thing that they're going to kind of do, shout out to Kirk Triplett, where like, you know, it's 2 events on or, you know, kind of taking like from the 2 or 3 non-elevated events, taking the top 5 guys from that and putting them into the next elevated event. Like that's sweet, right? That's more interconnectivity than there is right now on some of these, you know? So I don't know. I'm excited about it. Like, yeah, there's some elements that I don't love. Like I think there should be a cut. I think the messaging around it so far has been pretty poor. We'll see if they can improve that this week. This is a big comms week for the tour with the players. But yeah, overall, it's like, man, like let's clean it up a little bit. Let's tighten it up. And there's, you know, I think the whole 12th man on the NBA bench is a pretty apt analogy for this. Like, yeah, you know what? Kevin Durant or LeBron or Giannis, like they're not like they have more power at the table because they are who they are. It's the same thing with Rory or Spieth or Morikawa. It's like, dude, like James, like that's the fucking way the world works, man. It's a meritocracy. Play better.
Yeah, we'll get to some of James Hahn's quotes from this past week. I think where I'm at is I've really enjoyed the designated events so far. I think it's gone really well, and they've been bigger fields. Yet I don't think they've been great because of the bigger fields, right? I think they've been a success, and like, you know, I don't know what the right field size is. Is it 120? Is it 78? Is it 70? I don't like have the answer to that. And I just a cautious thumbs up to it being smaller fields. I do think you should have some kind of cut for Saturday. I just don't think we need to base the final round pairings based off being able to squeeze guys in different daylight periods and things like that. And I think that
need twosomes
on the weekends. Like that helps the flow of everything so much better. And it's not, I said this, earlier this week, though, it's not, I think there's a lot of grandstanding going on. A lot of people are pretending the cut's a way bigger deal than it is. Like, I'm sorry. It's just not that big of a deal. It's guys that are performing pretty average to mediocre in that week. Bay Hill, they went off the air before the cut was settled it didn't even get settled on Friday night. It went to Saturday. There's not like a real actual cut line. That's not real juice that goes into a tournament. Like, sure, Friday afternoon, like you might have a chance to like follow Spieth when he's having an off week and see if he makes it. But like, dude, like Morikawa missed the cut this week and it just didn't like matter that much. Like the telecast is so bad on the weekend anyways. Did you even notice who did or didn't make the cut? Probably not. So that's to say, like, I'm surprised at the reaction that seems very like, oh, they ruined everything because they took the cut away. And I'm like, dude, way, way, way more people care about what happens at the very end of the tournament. And if if you're 30 shots off the pace, that does not factor in when you get to that point. And who knows, man? Like, let's pretend Rahm would have missed the cut this week, and like you're going to go out on Sunday and you have a chance, like with your kids, like go out and watch the number one player in the world play for 9 holes. Like, you get to go watch Jon Rahm, and otherwise he wouldn't have been there. And I don't know. That just seems like it seems like that has been something people have honed in on so much and totally ignored, that we're going to get a whole new structure that has the best players in the world playing together way more frequently. And it just like those two things are not. You can't just put like one in the positive, one in the negative column and pretend like those things are kind of offsetting, because for me, like 99% of the deal here is the competitive nature of this structure. And one is like, all right, some of these details might not be like perfect.
There was a good cut story this week with that, the Club Pro
guy that made the cut on the number. Yes.
Yeah.
But like, again,
question for you.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that guys, if they said, all right, we're going to have a cut, it's going to be 12 people, the lowest 12, like what constitutes a cut? Is it lopping off? So 72 guys made the cut this week. Seamus Power finished 12 over par, and finished 21 shots off the lead. So the last guy that made the cut finished 21 shots off the lead. Can't imagine, like, tough golf course. Yeah. Guy that didn't make the cut, that like if they didn't have a cut, it would have been 40, 45 shots off the lead, right? But how many guys do you have to cut off the field for it to be considered a real cut?
I think,
enough.
Can I ask that in a different way?
Can
I ask that in a different way in terms of, I think what's important with these events is like, you can't hand out FedEx Cup points to everyone in the field, right? So let's just say if there's 78 people in the field, let's say maybe only top 50 get points, right? So is that a way of cutting the field? It's at a certain point, it's like, all right, when you make it to Sunday, like everyone, if you made it to Sunday, everyone's getting points, but like only top 50 are playing on Sunday. We're going to play twosomes. It's going to be 25 groups. And that's like where the cutoff is. Like, that to me seems like a compromise. I'm willing to try this no cut thing. Like, I don't think it's going to be an enormous effect that people think it is, but it again just doesn't seem like that big of a deal.
I would just rather they focus, like, the product is, I know people hate it when you say product, but like the like what we're consuming as golf fans is predicated upon twosomes on the weekend and decent, TV hours and that sort of thing. And like, this does have an effect on that. That's my big thing with the cut is like, there doesn't need to be 75 guys or 80 guys playing on the weekend, at least on Sunday.
I think too, like, get where you can get the daylight in. Like, guy needs to be able to get through the whole field in the day. Like, that's pretty important. Like that. The guys have to finish in the dark. Like, that's pretty freaking frustrating.
Well, this is a good comment here from Caleb Donnelly. He said, I think the blowback was because that was a big criticism of Liv. And like, I get that sentiment. I, again, just think it's so vastly different for like, and we talked about this on Wednesday, but like the cut just kind of happened before the tournament, right? It's essentially cut a field in half to start the tournament, right? And this is, you only get to, there's 4 sponsors exemptions into this. Liv is 48 sponsors exemptions. Okay. The whole league is a sponsor exemption. The designated events are 98% only get there through qualification of your accomplishments on the golf course, your score. It's not a popularity contest. Sponsors exemptions, those are popularity contests, whatever. Put those aside. 74 of 78 of the guys that are going to be in these fields have earned their way only through play on the course. That's an enormous difference. You're not talking about the same thing when it comes to a cut at that point. And again, like, I just don't think that LIV not having cuts in their events is as big of a deal as like it just being a totally closed off system that, if I don't know. It's just very, very, very different in my mind from what LIV is putting out. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
The devil's in the details, right? Everything's going to be predicated upon how they set up the point structure, how they induce churn, right? Like the fact that, if after the first year or the second year, we talked about this on Tuesday or Wednesday, like they need to be able to make changes. They need to be flexible. They need to be nimble. They're not going to get it perfect right from the start. Based on some of their track record, like I don't think that they've gotten it perfect, even close to perfect as of right now. Like they have all these bullshit exemptions. They have the top 25 career money exemption. They got all these get out of jail free cards. And I think the only get out of jail free card that they should have is like Tiger. Like, cool. Has anybody won more than 75 tour events? Cool. If not, like no special exemptions or no, like there's sponsor exemptions that are up for grabs, maybe do 2 or 3 or whatever. But there's just something to be said for like it's going to be tougher to stay in that than it is to beat this other number of guys in the non-designated events and earn your way back up. I mean, beating the top 30 guys or top 40 guys in the world and staying in that top 50 is going to be really fucking hard. Like very difficult,
There's a romantic element to me that I think we're going to lose a little bit of it. It's not like we're limiting cuts in all of golf. Like there's still going to be a US Open cut, there's going to be a Masters cut, all that stuff. But like there is something that I think is kind of sort of, cool about the idea of like you're trunk slamming. Like you might not make any money if you're not playing well for like months at a time, missed cut after missed cut after missed cut. And so there's an element of like, well, that's going away. But you know what? I was thinking a lot about this weekend. Like sports have to evolve in some ways. Like, you know what? There's 17 NFL games and baseball is talking about bringing in a pitching clock. And, football is vastly different than it was when I started watching it in 1985. Like the idea that golf could just sort of stay the way that it was forever because of this, like, oh, well, Arnie and Jack did this, like that isn't going to fly. And so if the answer to like, fixing the PGA Tour for the Rory McIlroys and the Jordan Spieths and Scotty Schefflers and Jon Rahms of the world is, hey, the upper tier wants some sort of like guaranteed, like if we're going to all play together every week and we're going to have less freedom over setting our schedule, we want like at least like our expenses covered. We want like a minimum sort of salary in this stuff. And that, look, there's minimum salaries in every other sport. You make $1 million to be the 12th man on the bench in the NBA. That's the minimum salary for a rookie. And it goes up from there. So the idea that like golfers don't deserve some sort of, stipend essentially for being some of the best players in the world when the broadcasts are $1 trillion, $1 billion deals that are going around, I think is probably kind of antiquated. And the people who are hanging on to it are the same people who said, well, of course, why wouldn't, Phil and Dustin Johnson go to do stuff? Because it's guaranteed money. Like, wouldn't you take the guaranteed money? So I feel like there's a little bit of arguing out of both sides of their mouth in that sense of like, well, you said, yeah, I did say, and I agree. I did like the idea of a cut because I felt like you had skin in the game. That was part of the sort of OWGR stuff. I don't love it. I hope there's still some cuts, but I also realize like there are bigger issues in play.
It's so funny to me that we're sitting here talking about cuts and the legacy of the game and the history of the game. I got 2 things for you. Tour Championship is a fucking staggered start.
Yeah.
Right? It's a handicapped event. All right. So that's the first thing. And also the FedEx Cup playoffs, like the season long thing is called the FedEx Cup. All right. So it's not like anything's really sacred here. Yes. Also, buddy of mine,
what's your favorite miscut of all time, TC? I mean, it's like such a stupid thing to like.
Jack Nicklaus, 1978 season. Buddy sent this to me. He played in 15 tournaments. He won 4 times. They were all full field events. 3 averaged 142 players. The British Open had a field of 117. He played in 2 events with no cuts. Those fields had only 29 and 26 players. He also played in 8 tournaments that had a reduced field. They averaged 81 players, and those tournaments had no cuts. Usually the low 70 players were paid. There were some events, such as Nicklaus's own Memorial, that had a reduced field of 76 and a cut to 73 players. Eight tournaments out of 15 that had reduced fields and averaged 81 players, and those tournaments didn't have a cut. So people want to talk about the fucking history of this thing or the legacy and all that. Like, the legacy of the tour used to be that everybody Monday qualified every single week.
It's true.
And again, like, if you were designing golf, there's no way you'd look at it and be like, dude, more of these guys should be out here. Like, we need to add numbers 125 through 156 in the world to this. Like, that's what
Lashley was not in the tournament this week. How could we possibly consider this a designated event?
It's an asterisk for Kirk Kitayama because of the guys that did not get into this field. It's a joke. Do you want to get into some of Hahn's comments here? I think there's it's a struggle.
I think what we're going to do, Solly, is I'm going to read James. I'm going to play the role tonight of James Hahn.
Okay.
And I'm going to read his comments, and I'm going to ask you and TC to react to them because I think it's an important look. James Hahn was on the Player Advisory Council. James Hahn was involved in decisions to shape the future of the PGA Tour. And so James Hahn is now continuing to put himself out there. I think we all agree with some comments that seem a little bit ill-informed or perhaps
just want to clarify, he was a player director on the board. Like, he had a vote. He was one of 9 guys that had a vote, one of 4 players that had a vote on policy at the PGA Tour.
So if you didn't see, just if you're coming to this podcast without being deep into the morass of golf Twitter, James gave an interview with Golf Week this week with Adam Schupak. Again, Adam doing a great job of getting to people to talk to, broke the Bryson stuff and equipment stuff, last week. Getting this James interview, really want to throw a shout out to him because
we're allowed to scoop this week too.
Talk about the Pebble Scoop. We're allowed to talk about limited stuff because someone like Adam is out there doing reporting. So shout out to that. But talk to James on the phone, and James really kind of went off about how terrible he thinks this new structure is for players like James Hahn. And basically, we're going to sort of dig into his quotes here. First one right off the bat, I would like you guys to respond to is James says, right now, they're just covering their ass and saying everything the PGA Tour has basically trained them to say, have taught them to say, and try to make it not about the money, when everyone knows 100% it's about more guaranteed money being funneled to the top players in the world. We've been talking about money for the last 2 years, and for them to say that it's not the number one reason why they're making these changes, it is very, very hypocritical. Solly, Tron, I turned it over to you now to please respond to that first part.
I don't even need to respond. Keep going.
I'm trying to give some sympathy here in that, saying I understand that Hahn was on the policy board specifically to represent like his class of player, right? Like that. The reason why he says these things is because like he feels a responsibility to represent the rest of the tour that he represents, right? I'm excusing that. I'd say that does not excuse the ignorance that comes with, where 99% of the value of professional golf is created. I think that comes from the top players. And I think one of the issues that the PGA Tour has had is those top players have subsidized the rest of the tour for a long period of time. And it is of my opinion that the rank and file of the tour has essentially held the rest of the tour hostage and has greatly contributed to the very diluted product that we see every week, right? So in my opinion, things desperately needed to change. A lot of the leadership at the tour agreed with this, and what Liv has given us has given the top players is some leverage to finally say like, hey, James Hahn's, like, this is how you've wanted it and had it for a long time. I've seen your plan. My dad's plan is better. And let's go think about how we actually grow the pie here. You can leverage us. Like, if I'm looking at what Rory has done, does Rory stand to benefit a lot from this? Absolutely, he does. I could get way down with what Hahn is saying if I felt like Rory was robbing from Hahn to pay himself. When, if you really dig into it, sure freaking seems like those top guys have given a shitload of consideration to the rank and file membership of the tour and how they've gone about making these decisions. And it just doesn't seem to me like, hey, yeah, we are talking about more money here. Like, James, we are. Like, I don't know what the point is of saying that out in public. Like, that's not really the vibe that anyone's looking for, but that also means more money for you. That also means the pie grows. Like, if more people are playing together, more money comes in, you guys are going to be playing for still plenty of money in the standard events. We're going to be playing for more money in the elevated events. Like, everyone should win here. Are the top players going to win more than you're going to win? Yes. is that fair based on the way things currently are in golf? I would certainly say so. So it just is kind of frustrating to read that and just be like, dude, like there are people working really hard to try to make this a lot better for everyone, for fans and for players alike. And I don't think that attitude really helps that.
And the stat, like you said it a bunch of times, Solly, the status quo isn't workable.
It's not right? Like the other option. It's not the other option. It's no longer an option.
The whole reason that Liv had the window to do this in the first place was because, you know, like the tour setup was fucked up to begin with, right? And it was way too spread across. Like, and James seems to want one of those McDonald's apple pies. It's really, really small, and he wants a really big portion of that. Where like you get a big extra large apple pie, but give him a small sliver, and he's still getting more apple pie, but he doesn't seem to understand that. Something else I'll say too is like it blows me away that everybody talks about the top players as like this cabal or this mysterious group that's like operating mysteriously behind the scenes, like the fucking Rothschilds, right? Or the Rockefellers. Like, no, guys, like it's literally just the best play, like the guys who played the best this year. And yes, I know they're making a change for future years, but like it's not like this is some closed off.
They don't get to keep their spot there.
System. Yeah, they're not like
they're out.
It's not like a Supreme Court nomination. You get to stay as one of these top players, these elite players for the rest of your life. It's like, no, like look at Ricky Fowler. Like, you know, he would have been one of the guys 5 years ago, and now it's like he's not sniffing that right now. You know, he'd be playing in all these lower tier events, and he still supports that, right? And not to mention they're doing away with half the PIP. They're bringing the PIP back down to 50 million. They're making it more about on-course performance and everything. So I don't know.
Why don't you keep going, Kit? Because I think we're kind of going to meander around a lot of stuff here, but keep going here, KPV.
All right. Hahn later said they have created these elevated events, which significantly impacts other full field events, sandwiched in between the full field events. The solution to their problem is to limit the number of players that get into elevated events and force the other players to play in other full field non-elevated events. I'm just going to stop there because I feel like that's not really a complaint. That feels sort of like the solution, but I'm going to go ahead and pass it off to you guys because I'm just the reader here. I'm not the answerer.
Again, maybe I was overly convinced by Peter Malnati, who came on our podcast this past week and talked about why he changed his mind. I think he thought very similarly to James and has changed his mind, but I don't get the sense that like forcing the other players to play in the other full field events is a bad thing. Like it seemed like a concern when all these things were being talked about was like, how are the other events going to survive? Like they're going to get decimated. To that, I would say, like, one, look at what's already happened to the Honda Classics.
Look at the Puerto Rico Open.
They're already decimated. And two, it's like, hey, no, like this is, and I got a chance to look at a little bit of data that I know the tour guys are looking at when making these decisions. But essentially, it's like, all right, the downstream effect of this is if they ended up with 120 guys in the designated field events compared to this 70 to 80, whatever it is, they would basically be filling out the standard events with about 50% of the field coming from the FedEx Cup top 125 from the prior year, right? Like half the field would come from top 125 players on the PGA Tour. Yet, if you limit the designated event to between the 70 and 80 number, they're now expecting the standard event fields to be filled out by about 72% of that field will be made up of top 125 players, right? So instead of like worrying like who's going to sponsor these lower tier events, all that, like no, we are going to force you. Again, that quote being that word being doing a lot of work in there to say like, hey, like I don't know, name 51, 53, 55 on the previous year's FedEx Cup. They're going to go play that event, and that is going to be helpful to some of these events that don't pull anyone. And so to me, and again, now when you talk about those standard events, those sound competitive as fuck to me. That sounds like some of the guys I've been texting with and asking about are like, dude, like it's, I want to complain about this, but it's a play better situation, right? Like I have a chance to play for money I've never gotten a chance. I've never like played for before. And through good play on the golf course, I'm going to get there. Like it is open. It is possible. I think they could have made the system way more closed off, and I think they could have had legitimate complaints about it. I think those concerns were heard and factored in, and ultimately reached a decision that, like, I don't know if it's going to be great. I don't know if it's going to be perfect, but I don't really have a better idea than what they've come up with, which we throw a lot of ideas out. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I don't know, like, people can accuse us of dick riding or whatever, but like, I'm, and I'm a member of the local 613 chapter. 613. But yeah, I mean, it's like, yeah, like, I'm probably the most critical person of the folks down the road at the global home that there is, right? And like, I have no doubt that they're going to fuck some things up on this and not get the details right. And I think the communication's been awful. I think Monahan is just completely absent, and but also he's done a good job of keeping some of these sponsors in the boat. But just going down, like, I mean, earlier this week we couldn't even get the top 125 from the FedEx Cup last year. We couldn't get because the website doesn't work. So Sally, I know we're going to lose some more guys to live.
Yeah, they're going to live because
the app doesn't work. But I'll just run through some guys that are outside of that top. Like, Hatton was 49th, Mito Pereira was 50th, Christian Bezadenhout 51st, Tommy Fleetwood 64th, Ches 65th, Alex Noren 70th, Chris Kirk 68th.
That's another point, TC. I think people think there's way bigger names that are sitting outside of the top whatever in golf that are absolutely not. It's really not the case.
But it's like, all right, so Joel Damon's was 92nd last year. Had a great year. 92nd. Like, that's pretty crazy, right? Like, he's going to have to play really well to get into these. That's interesting in and of itself.
Yes.
Right? Like, the jockeying to get into these events is as interesting as these events themselves.
And again, like, I haven't modeled all of this out, but again, it seems more competitive than what the current structure of the tour is, or less flat, right? There's like, it's just a lot more consequence from week to week on, instead of it being just a total FedEx Cup summary at the end of the year and kind of relying on a lot of last year's stuff. Like, there's stuff to play for week to week that just seems a lot more interesting. And man, it's just like, the more I think about it, the more they're just lobbering for, like, literally for, like, the not as good at golf players. Like, they're just like, hey, yeah, I know this is going to get more competitive, but like, I'm not as good, and that's going to be harder for me. It's like, well, what the fuck are we doing here, guys? We're talking about, again, trying to make the best events better, and we're sitting here saying, like, all right, well, no, I'm not as good. Like, that's going to be a bad thing for me. Like, yeah, it might be. And guess what the solution to that is? Play better. I'm sorry.
It's not like it's not my problem. I mean, Ricky Fowler, Justin Rose, Jason Day, Brooks Koepka, all those guys would have been playing the John Deere last year. Is that a bad thing for the tour? That's fucking
great
awesome.
For the John Deere. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm the tournament director of the John Deere. I'm freaking pretty thrilled that Ricky Fowler might have to come to my
Gary Woodland's teeing up in your tournament, right? You get some of these star players, and then you also get the up and comers. It's the best of both worlds.
I also think, like, the biggest point that you have to make in a lot of ways is, like, not the lower tier tournaments are not getting less money. It's that the bigger tier tournaments are getting more money. Like, if it would, one thing we're like, all right, look, now purses and the lower tier tournaments are going to be like, I don't know, like $1 million bucks. So here's your $300,000 if you win. No, that's not happening. It's just they're staying the same, and more of the money is going towards the people who are actually the reason that you tune in every week. And if you win those tournaments, you can get up into that upper tier.
And like the purses have doubled over the last 8 to 10 years. Why? Because of Tiger, right? Yeah. And guess who's in favor of this? Tiger. So everybody, shut the fuck up. All right.
Speaking of TC, James, I don't know if I'll take a run at Tiger but he did bring up Tiger in this. Said, I use the word popular player instead of best players because, granted, Tiger is one of the best players to ever have played the game, but he just won the PIP money 2 years running without playing any golf, without being ranked in the top 1,000, without keeping his card. I would never have imagined growing up that someone could make more money just for being popular than how good they are on the course. And I say that as one who believes pay that man for bringing all the stuff to us. We're a business, we're a company. We're not spending money to provide the best playing experience for our members. We're all concerned with just pushing money towards the top players on the tour. That's where we're getting this great divide between the elevated events and non-elevated events and the players who play on two different tours. I now turn it over to you to respond of someone who is suggesting that perhaps Tiger Woods should not have been paid an enormous amount of money when in fact he probably did more for anybody, including Palmer to build this tour what it is.
Guess when that got approved? James Hahn was on the board.
I think he voted against it though. He was the
He
lone
did
vote
vote
against it.
Was he vociferous then too, or no?
I think he was, but it was Jordan Spieth's eyes that convinced the vote here, which we'll get to that.
I just want to
part.
skip to that. That's my
Okay.
favorite.
Look,
I don't think go ahead. I don't know that would really. I mean, that's so kind of absurd, and like suggesting that Tiger doesn't really the pit money in general is like a bad idea if Tiger's getting it for not playing. Like, you look, Tiger's still the reason that Tiger's the reason we're doing this podcast. He's the reason that like we have our jobs that we do. He's the reason that James Hahn certainly has his job. He's the reason that tons of guys got into golf. I think you could really not pay him enough money to sort of make everything like we're good on the contribution that you've brought to the game of golf.
I think of all of his points, like Pip being a concern is the one that I think is maybe one of his better ones, right? And I think I'm pro like paying a lot of these top guys like entertainment dollars, the dudes that put the butts in seats, put viewers, sign the sponsors up, like they should get chipped off something. They shouldn't make the same amount of money as William McGirt makes when you tie that guy. Like it's just you're providing different value, right? So in the old flat environment of all of these events, like some events have a little bit more money to them, but not really. Like the Pip made a lot more sense, and the Pip going from 50 million to 100 million still made sense to me. I don't know what the right number is. I don't think they executed it right, but whatever. Like it makes sense on that front. Now that we are restructuring this, so these top players and by and large, mostly the popular players are going to have greater chances to play for more money, like more frequently. Less Pip money makes sense. I think it going from 100 million to 50 million makes more sense in the new system than it just continually going up. So in that regard, like I don't like fully disagree. I still think he grossly misrecognizes the value that those guys bring to the sport and to how gestures wildly here. The entire landscape of professional golf has changed in the last 3 years, and like paying those guys and retaining their talents on the PGA Tour was a very big deal. Look, did they execute it great? No, like half of the first round of Pip guys left for Live anyways, but like that idea makes sense. And a factor in your decision, if you're Patrick Cantlay, if you're Xander Schauffele, is, hey, I'm going to make this much on course and also this much off course. Like, look, is Live probably more money? Yes, but hey, it's also still paying me very handsomely. I'm probably going to stick with this tour. It's hard to tell how much work that Pip did in that regard of when things looked pretty darn fragile as of August last year, how much work the Pip did there.
There's also some things going on with Live where like, all right, cool, your endorsement deals aren't going to get re-upped, right? Or your team's getting your endorsement deals, all that stuff. You're gonna, they're talking about these team budgets are now going to be subsidized by the team payouts, right? Like that, like there's some money being left on the table if you go to Live as well. And this stuff compounded over 5, 10, 15 years of a good PGA Tour career. Yeah, of course, it's not going to be given to you. You got to go earn it. But man, like it's gotten a hell of a lot more compelling. I think something else too is like going back to the, early 2010s, like when Bill Haas, no offense, I love Bill Haas. No offense to Bill Haas or Brant Snedeker, but like when those guys were like winning the FedEx Cup and that's the big pile of money at the end of the rainbow, like that's not necessarily the best use of funds either, right? Like there should be, I think, juicing up some of these regular season purses is a massive win because like everybody should be stoked about it inside the top 50 or the top 70. And all these guys think that they're good enough to be a top 50 or top 70 player. That's why they're out there, right? So I think there's definitely like increasing the sample size of, hey, if you win a tournament, you're going to get $3 or $4 million. Seems like a more equitable and fair way to do things than, hey, you know what? You got hot at the right time of the year and you're going to win $10 million and all the other tournaments are worth $800,000. Now, granted, I think the FedEx Cup is also going up as well. So you can kind of have your cake and eat it too. But, I think in order to get there, it does place more emphasis on the regular season.
Next, James expressed some frustration that he had raised some ideas about the Pip and that no one had listened to him. That when Patrick Cantlay got on the board, that he didn't win any Pip money, even though he won the FedEx Cup. And he sort of said, look, I'd rather we played for it and that was the Pip. And James said, why would they listen to him and not me? The message is the same. It's because he has a higher world ranking than I do. He has won more golf tournaments than I have, and his net worth is triple what I'm worth. Does any of that matter when the message is the same and the correct message? It happened before when Jordan Spieth was on the board, and the 4 independent directors listened to players that have a higher world rank than those who don't. That's just my personal experience. After my first year on the board, I wanted to resign because I didn't feel like my voice was being heard. I felt like they were listening to Jordan, which granted, he's very smart, very well spoken. He articulates his words in a way that I never could, and he gets his message across. He's very likable in person in those meetings. On and off the course, I have nothing but the most respect for Jordan. But you can see how when he talks that everyone's eyes in the rooms just glimmer like he's the queen, and everyone wants to ask her out for the dance. When Jordan would talk about an executive in the board's meetings, the independent director started blushing. Oh my gosh, Jordan's talking to me. How awesome is this? Fellas, I turn it over to you, and if you could explain how the real world works to James, and that stars do.
Do we need to, he explains it like he thinks he's making a point, but he talks for long enough that he comes around to be like, well, listen, he's smarter than me and speaks better, and also like has a higher ranking in the game. But like, yeah, they for some reason like all these like titans of industry that like understand a lot about business and a lot of different parts of business. For some reason, they really liked his plan a lot more than mine, which I really don't know why. I think it's just because of his eyes. I think it's when he flutters his eyes at these people, like they fall in love and they listen to what he says. It can't be the merit of what he's saying. I'm sure it's just like him, just because he's got so much star power.
Which Jordan had some great points this week, like in Shupak's piece about Pebble, right? Jordan was riding from making Pebble one of the designated events next year. Yeah. And it makes total sense of like, yeah, like Jordan seemingly has good ideas and has some good perspective on things. Also, like, I don't think anybody listens to Patrick Cantlay, according to a lot of the other players we talk to. So you know what, James, you and Patrick are actually in the same boat. I mean, Patrick's subcontractors may listen to him, but not any of his fellow players.
I think he's just conflating like the fact that he has representation in that room does not mean that like people are going to agree with your points or that they're good points or that it's good for the tour. Like, again, you are there to represent you riding as hard as you can for your class of players. I don't think you are viewing this through the best possible thing for the PGA Tour. That's where, if I listen to your quotes, it seems heavily motivated by what you think is best for the middle to lower class player and not what is best for the tour. And also, like, separate note, I just also disagree with what is actually better for your class of player, because I don't think you're really listening as to how this is going to work well for you guys.
Even like making the case, he's just not doing a good job making the case.
No.
like if I was one of these, 110, 120 players that was vehemently against this, I would have a big problem with James Hahn representing me because he seems like a fucking idiot.
Yes. And I've got that. I asked like 6-7 different people around Hahn's class of player this week via text for something we were trying to write and didn't end up publishing. But just like, what do you think on a scale of James Hahn to Peter Malnati? Where are you on the changes? And some of it was like, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty skeptical, but like whatever, to like, yeah, that he's an idiot. Like this is way off. And so it's interesting I don't really know who he's representing, which I think in the next quote he may indicate at least one guy that he's representing.
Because there's good points to be made, right? He's just not making them either. Yeah. That's part of the problem. It's like, James, like, you need to play better on and off the golf course.
James obviously did not appreciate Peter Malnati going on a couple of podcasts this week and basically endorsing the plan after sort of admitting that he came around to it. He said, when I see Peter, I'm going to tell him exactly what Lanto Griffin told me when I was put in that position, and my mind was swayed by the executives on the board. He said, you were put there for a reason to voice the opinion of the majority of the players on the PGA Tour. If he doesn't have enough balls to sack up and vote against it, then I don't want him on the board. We picked the wrong guy. He was put there to argue our side of the discussion. If it's going to pass regardless, but he doesn't have enough balls to vote against it and take a stance that I did for what he believes in, then he shouldn't be on the board. We don't need another person like that on the board if you can't stick up for us. Let's be honest. It would have passed. They had enough votes to pass. It's just a cop-out to prevent the media, yourself, Alan Shipnucks of the world, from asking him why he voted no. If he doesn't have the courage to do it and go into the lion's den, then he should get out. We need somebody else in there. I did it right, and everyone saw how I was treated.
James has big coalition of the willing vibes, and it's like who? Like maybe maybe the majority of the tour has shifted, right? Maybe there's too many mouths to feed at the table, which we've been saying for years. And B, maybe most of those mouths have kind of come around to this, just like Peter did. I would say pretty courageously, right? Like it's a pretty humbling thing to change your mind on something that you've been staunchly against and publicly against. It's a pretty humbling thing to do a complete 180 on it and say, you know what, hand up. I was wrong. I thought about this a little bit differently. I've thought about it a lot, and I'm going to change my mind on this. That's not an easy thing to do. The easier thing is to just dig your heels in and keep going, keep throwing good after bad or bad after good or however it is. But man, it's like James, maybe the tour is just moving on without you, dog.
Well, he admits that later on. If we'll get there again, he's all over the place. But I think like this is a very telling quote in general, you know, to what you're saying there, TC. He's essentially saying, in the face of information that would, you know, potentially change his mind and better serve his class of members, he would still vote no. It's like, dude, if you want to debate Peter Malnati on the reasons of why he flipped, like I would listen to that. I would love to hear exactly why. But putting your fingers in your ear and stomping your feet and throwing a tantrum for the sake of holding your ground is, in my opinion, exactly why you should not be driving policy on the PGA Tour, right? I mean, if I really thought if he had his way that the middle-class player was better served, I could still understand this. I could really understand it. You're fighting and clawing, you know, but again, I just don't think the top players are reaching into your pockets to rob you out of anything related to your career.
And you know what? Referencing Lanto Griffin, who's won once out there and is 34 years old and his best golf's probably behind him. It's like it feels a lot like James he thinks his constituency are guys like the top 125 on the PGA Tour in 2013.
Yeah.
And all those guys are still most of those guys are still probably playing golf. But like, man, like, you know what? Like that's not the future. That's not how the tour is going to look in 2 years, much less 5 years. And at some point, it's like you got to represent the guys that are on the PGA Tour right now, not the guys that were on the PGA Tour 5 years ago.
Well, and don't you think there should be a pretty big hurdle to clear in terms of like, dude, you don't understand. Like, these are the worst players. Like, this is what we need to be doing for them, right? Like, in this extremely competitive sport, like, there should be a big hurdle to clear for like why less talented players should be getting more of the pie or more consideration in all of this. Like, that's a pretty big hurdle, right?
I gotta say, it sounds a lot like James really wants to form a union. And hey, listen, if you're gonna go down that route, let's have a conversation, because you know I'm a big fan of organized labor, but I don't think that's what the PGA Tour was built on. I don't quite know how all these libertarian guys have suddenly just discovered socialism, and they really feel like Rahm and Rory should take less to sort of help them out and boost up their careers, which you know are definitely, as they will admit, like on the way out. But you know what? Like, if you're saying that for the overall good of golf, that's what you want, then make that argument. Don't tiptoe it. Say it with your whole chest, because I'm here for it.
If you want a union to collective bargain against yourselves, there's not a group of owners that you're bargaining against like in other major sports, but it's a player-run organization. But yeah. Anyways,
the whole thing of just oh my gosh, it's crazy that the best players, the most successful players who've earned this, have this big seat at the table. It's like, yeah, like, sorry, Lanto, you're world number 194 right now. Like, your opinion doesn't count for as much as world number 4.
All right, we're gonna wrap it up with this last Hahn quote. In this week in James Hahn's tweets or talk and discussion, whatever. He says, "I'm going to play the remainder of this year with full status. And then next year, I'll probably end up with conditional status, past champion status, and I'll play in those opposite field events and then retire the following year. Because, I mean, I'm older. I can't really hang with these younger stars of our game. I mean, they're really good. They're really good. But also, I don't feel like the tour is going in the direction that the majority of the PGA Tour players like."
That speaks for itself. Right? Like, there's not even anything we really need to say. And you know what? Since he said that, let's get rid of the opposite field events so that James Hahn can't play them.
I'll say
because
this.
You know what? Nobody's going to be playing in the non-designated events according to him anyway. So why should we need opposite field events, right?
I I'm going to give him big benefit of the doubt here, and that I'm giving him credit in terms of like that he is also like sticking up for like future players that are not himself directly, right? Like that's how he views his role. Do I think his path of getting there is like the right one, and do I think he's making good points? No, I don't. But like there's something noble to that, right? Like he's taking that part of the role seriously, and to that I commend, I guess, if you will. But like again, like we're talking about the bottom half of the tour, and when he talks about like majority of PGA Tour players. Part of the reason why we got here is because the majority of PGA Tour players are not the ones that drive the majority of the value. And that had to shift. And that's what has shifted. So like if he says that I don't feel that, the majority of PGA Tour players like the direction it's going, one, I kind of believe him, because two, I think like if they think like James does, I don't think they're very well informed about what direction the PGA Tour is going. And maybe they do end up getting totally screwed. I don't want to sit here and promise that they won't, but I've not heard it spelled out that way. If you listen and talk to Roy McIlroy about this stuff, like probably more concessions made than they would like to give that, to the rank and file members of the PGA Tour. And again, those purses I've not seen. I do not think they're going down. I think you're going to play for $8.5–9 million in standard events on the PGA Tour with the opportunity to get into $20 million events through great play. I don't, unless you're just not good at golf, I don't see who doesn't ride for this. Yes, look, the way I viewed it, it was like if somebody random came up to you and said, KVV, I'm going to buy you $1 million house. Here's your house. Go move into it. Go enjoy it. You're going to love that, right? And they came up to me and were like, Solly, here's your $2 million house. Go enjoy it. Go live in it. Wouldn't you look at it a little bit like, oh, well, shit, man, why did he get a way better one than me when you already got something great? That's what this thing feels like to me, of like, yeah, it's going to get better for the top guys. And that's what he can't handle. That's what he can't grasp, is like how much better it's about to get for them. And despite it not getting worse for him, it's a reallocation of how things are going to get distributed. Yeah, your piece of the pie is going to be a lower percentage, but in total, it's going to be as good or better, probably. Let's move on, and let's all agree that that's the best thing possible for golf.
I honestly think your point about Rory, like Rory, you could have someone much more ruthless and much more sort of dickish in that position.
Phil,
right? And Rory's, I mean, look, Rory's kind of like, all right, look, we're trying to figure this out so that people feel like they're being listened to and respected. Like, here's the concessions we're making. Like, we could go and leave, and there will be no PGA Tour left. But let's stick it here and let's figure out a model that works for everybody. And it's still like, no, you're screwing us. I don't know, man. Like, maybe not.
Like, do you really want to know what the alternative is here? Like, because it's that your class of player doesn't exist anymore. That's probably the other alternative,
right? Like, all right, cool. You want to talk about live, James? Cool. Like, all right, there's 48 guys on that, and they've all been asked to go play that, and then the other ones are playing for a pittance on the Asian Tour, right? Or like Solly in your house example, the reason that you were given that $2 million house is because you played better than KVV as well. Like, it's not like you were just given it just arbitrarily, right? Yeah. Although, I mean, you know what? Like maybe James is just coming at this from like a mega left liberal socialist point of view. Maybe he's truly just like a cow bear through and through, right?
I mean, dude retweets Elon Musk way too much for that to be true. So, but maybe
he doesn't like the liberal golf pundits either.
No.
It's just funny to me that like, these purses and like the money out there has just proliferated, and it's like 10x what it was 20 years ago, right? And so somehow, and it's probably out of balance. All boats rise, but they didn't funnel quite enough to the top players. And I think most guys out there would say, like, how many guys have we had on the podcast that have said like Tiger's almost underpaid athlete in sports, or Tiger, like I owe this percentage of my career earnings to Tiger, all that. And it's like, all right, well, like what drives the value? What drives the revenue? It's stars. It's guys that are teeing it up week after week that people are tuning in to NBC and CBS to watch. And the way out of this is like more stars playing in these events, so the ratings go up, so that, the rating, like those commercials are worth more. You don't have to play as many commercials. And it's like when James, when you're on the leaderboard, those commercials are worth less. Straight up. Like you're like nobody gives a shit about you except for the Gangnam style dance that you did on the 16th green in Phoenix in 2013. That's the only notable thing. You've won twice, good wins. But like nobody gives a shit. Nobody's tuning in to these tournaments. You've been one of the most overpaid athletes on the planet over the last 10 years. Get that through your head, man.
I was just getting ready to say, man, we don't mean to make this personal. Like, no, but in reality, like we're directing a lot of this at him, but it's directed at, again, tour inertia and tour policy and the rank and file members of the tour. And again, like, shout out to him for like putting this out there. And again, if he wasn't a policy driver, it probably wouldn't be worthy of conversation because there's just a lot of opinions out there. But it's he puts out a lot to react to. And again, it's just like I think it's an incredible window into how all of this has worked over a long period of time. And there's a new world order and it's going to change. So,
yeah. And you're setting it up for guys to bet on themselves, right? Like, young guys are going to want to come to the PGA Tour, bet on themselves, make a shitload of money if they play well. That stems the tide from guys going to live that are attracted by dollar signs. It's just crazy to me that I guess, what is the definition of a PGA Tour player? Is it the top 125? Is it a lifetime member? Is it a guy that finished 176th on the money list? Like, what are we talking about when we're talking about a PGA Tour member?
Yeah.
And I don't know, right?
Yeah,
I'm asking the question.
I don't, that's part of the problem, I'd say. So, that's a long pod. Y'all have,
I'm hopeful that that's the last ever This Week in James Hahn segment that we have to do. But that was a good one, though. It was. Let that be the sort of the final word, hopefully. But you never know. He could fire off a series of angry tweets tomorrow. So.
Cody, bored over there?
Riveting stuff, gentlemen. It's just so such a exciting listen. Question here from Connor L. Has he responded to coming on the pod?
Has not. Didn't seem to be a fan of some of the tweets, so I don't think that'll necessarily be the case.
You should send him this one then.
Yeah. I'll get to another question here from is it Ian McDermott? Is that how you say it? Owen McDermott. That's the Irish spelling. I always mess that one up.
God, the Irish are gonna get pissed at you.
Sure. Hey, I'm trying here. Any news on DP World Tour getting anything out of this? What happened to them getting a designated event? Rory commented on that this week. I don't know if that's going to happen in 2024, but I think that is at least on the radar. I think, and I hope that to be the case. I hope they get two. I think there should be back-to-back designated events.
Good
one thing that came out of that too, I don't know if it's public knowledge that people realize or it's been talked about, that everyone's like, what is DP World Tour getting out of this? What are they getting? What are they getting? What are they getting? I don't know if I knew this, that PGA Tour is guaranteeing purses on the DP World Tour. That seems like a not small thing in terms of this development.
Why are they doing that?
Part of the strategic alliance.
Strategic alliance, baby.
Yeah.
Strategery.
But that just seems like, everyone seems like the DP World Tour is getting totally screwed. I feel like that is like the DP World Tour is like being able to pay out the money for the scheduled events. Like that seems like a relatively good contribution the PGA Tour is making to them. I think there probably could and should be ways to qualify through the DP World Tour for the designated events. There should be more continuity and kind of, maybe coast-sanctioned events, Scottish Open, something like that. But at the same time, that was kind of something that was like, oh shit, I don't know if that's really fully out there. So wanted to at least get that out there.
Very WGC thinking of you, Sully.
Which I think a little bit of it is the tour could be doing more outward. They could again, communications. They could be telling this story better.
Yes.
It could be.
Why isn't this on their website? I got to say, maybe they're going to announce it next week, obviously, but like it's out there. Like we're talking about it, and like people will want to go and read this stuff. There's nowhere to go on the website.
There's no communications. There's no leadership whatsoever.
Which has got to be frustrating. I know people have sent, like, where can I go read about this stuff? That's you got to come to like nolayingup.com to figure out like what the PGA Tour's next designated schedule is going to look like next year. That's a mistake in messaging.
Totally. I mean, or it's just it's not even a mistake. It's just an absence of messaging completely.
Yeah, this entire week's been a shit show when it comes to messaging. And hopefully, I don't know, maybe the Tuesday presser clears a little bit of it up, but it's nuts.
But it's like we're going 4, 5, 6, 8 months without seeing Jay Monahan in front of microphones. Like even just casual meetings with the media. There's no line of communication between the tour and the fans. Except for Rory.
I think I told you this, John, once. Like, I went to write about Dwayne Wade. I was like a young reporter. I was like, Wade was a rookie, and David Stern was at the game. And I was like, can I talk to David Stern? And he was like, yeah. Wandered all over, talked to David Stern for 15 minutes. Like, that's kind of a commissioner's job. Like, if you're sort of seeing yourself as like promoting stuff, I think it's time for, that sort of thing to happen. If he's not comfortable with it, then he needs to get more comfortable with it, because that's part of it.
Yeah. And I couldn't even find the fucking FedEx Cup standings from last year on the website, guys. Also, question, why isn't there a big ass tournament in London? I know we got the BMW PGA. Maybe that's the future elevated designated event. But like, how is there not like a Heathland BD?
Let's do Walton Heath. Let's do
Walton Heath, Sunningdale. There's any number of places. Shit, take it to Wentworth. I don't even like Wentworth. Take it to Wentworth. But like London, it's like one of the biggest markets in the entire fucking world. Yeah. And we just haven't had any big golf tournaments there.
This is going to be TC's version of down the globe in terms of places where there should be golf.
Well, I mean,
events.
yeah,
for 2 hours in
Melbourne, all those places. But like, no, like, all right, London's a pretty easy win, I think.
Any housekeeping before we wrap? I'm gonna start waving the flag at 2:10 here.
Big week coming up.
Big week coming.
Big week coming. We got to do some filming tomorrow. Then we have Players Week here in Jacksonville. Looking forward to that. We'll have a Players Championship preview podcast out on Tuesday. We will have live shows after every round of the Players Championship. We are very excited about that.
Don't forget
writing going on with KVV. I hope you have time for that with all the live shows we're going to be doing as well here.
I hope so.
But we'll be out in full force, and we're very, very excited for all that.
We had a robust trap draw drop overnight last night. We've got Oscar's trap draw dropping tomorrow. We've got our Gold Boy merch collection in honor of our guy dropping this. Or I think it dropped last week. And then, guys, I just want to say too, aim point. It's a disgrace.
Hell yeah, let's go TC.
I mean, Hovland, he spent like 90
over.
seconds on one of the greens aim pointing. It was so bad. And then I don't know if you guys saw the video of the young lady in the collegiate event this week.
Oh, stepping in lines, aim pointing.
Not only stepping on the lines, stepping on the hole, stepping on the cup. What are we doing?
Take it
away.
Away.
Insane.
Take it away. Take it away.
There will be a Perfect Club pod coming up. Just coming out Monday, tomorrow? Is that right? Oscar's pod. And then there'll be another one later in the month about Succession. I know Neil is psyched. He's been doing the rewatch. He's getting deep into the rewatch of Succession. He's giddy. So,
thank you, everyone, for tuning in to another live show. Thank you to our friends at High Noon for supporting the live shows. We will, again, like I said, we got 4 more coming this week. A lot of content, and very excited for Players Week. So thank you, everyone.
Are we doing the ice for Players Week?
We probably should. We'll fill up the Yeti. We'll make sure it stays cool through the whole week, and we'll keep you posted on that. We'll be doing the shows live from the Kill House, so we actually are very excited about that.
We'll do it live.
So
pumped to get to Florida.
Can't wait, man. We'll see you this
Bring
week,
it.
buddy. Safe travels, and again, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.